From kickoff to cash out, your weekend sports destination is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
All right, here we go on another Saturday. It is BetMGM Game Day. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you for the next 3 hours. It is Elite 8 Saturday in college hoops. We certainly will get to the two matchups coming up later on this evening. Two matchups tomorrow. We had an amazing, I think, Sweet 16 on Thursday and Friday. We also have the start of the 2026 MLB season. Austin, what's going on, my man?
I assume we're just going wall to wall all day today on BetMGM Game Day, covering UFL's opening weekend, right? Big win last night by the Birmingham Stallions over the Louisville Kings, 15-13, I think was the final. AJ Karen coaching debut gets the big win. You got Battlehawks, DC Defenders going on right now with the first 4-point play in football history, 60-yard field goal. I mean, UFL is back, and we are loving it.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I love it so much that until you said that, I had zero clue that was taking place this entire weekend. I don't know if I've told you, my whole thing with these leagues, look, I think it can be a good opportunity for some of these guys to get a chance to showcase themselves. In general, I will not invest in any of these spring leagues until they can prove they can last for more than 5 years. And none of them can make it past 2 years.
So you're not watching Houston Gamblers at the Dallas Renegades tonight?
I will not. Man, I gave all these leagues a shot at one point when there was like this alliance of whatever American football down in San Antonio. And I've done some play-by-play, some PA announcing for one of these indoor football leagues back in the league. They all never last. And so I'm waiting. I want them to prove to me, basically, that they can withstand a 5-year run. Then I might actually pay attention.
See, you're talking to a guy who, in the original iteration of the XFL, back when Vince McMahon owned the league, and it was the Extreme Football League.
He hate me.
Yes, exactly. I played XFL fantasy football, so I am all in.
No, you didn't.
I did through Yahoo Sports. I played XFL fantasy. Tommy Maddox was my quarterback, and he took, I think, the San Francisco. What was their team name? San Francisco to the championship against the LA Extreme, but the LA Extreme ended up ousting Tommy Maddox in that game. So
that's a tough loss. That's a tough loss for that San Francisco team. Well, I'm glad to now know this. Again, every week we learn something new about each other. I had no idea you were playing fantasy football in the XFL. But you know what? Look, some of us are sicker than others, and here we are. You guys can interact with us on YouTube as well. Don't forget, we can watch the show BetMGM Tonight. That's youtube.com/BetMGM Tonight if you want to watch on Twitch as well. And if you want to listen in different ways, maybe you're somebody that's listening on one of the affiliates across the country, you can also check out the show here on Westwood One Sports on the Odyssey app, the Westwood One Sports app, and also SiriusXM channel 375. But let's get right into it, man. We've got a guest coming up here in about 20 minutes or so to talk some more college hoops with us from The Athletic. Justin Williams will join us. But I do want to certainly give some of our thoughts right out of the gate here on what we saw last night. And I think we do have to start with St. John's and Duke. It was the first game yesterday in the Sweet 16. That was the East region. Duke, the number 1 overall seed, ends up winning against St. John's 80-75. The reason I want to start there, not just because it was the first game of the night, and honestly, maybe the best game of the night, unless you want to discuss UConn and Michigan State, is I have been pretty skeptical about Duke. I did not have them go into the Final Four in my bracket that Austin cares so much about, and they didn't look great heading into the ACC tournament. But last night, we saw, kind of unexpectedly, Caleb Foster get in the game and steady things for them. They were struggling there. Caden Boozer was struggling, and you saw, while clearly not 100%, Caleb Foster comes in, and that was the game changer for Duke, who, look, even if they're not the number 1 overall seed that you think they should be, I guess, they were better than St. John's all season long. St. John's, to me, was very fortunate to even beat Kansas last week. KU was terrible. St. John's shot a record amount of threes. And going into this game, the part that surprised me is, frankly, how close it was. I thought Duke could have won by double digits heading in. But this Duke team with Caleb Foster is a much different squad. And I know we'll get to their next round game against UConn a little bit later on the show. But how do you feel about Duke right now? Because that that moment when Caleb Foster came in, they looked like a different team.
Yeah, before getting into Duke, I got Rick Pitino. The job he did at St. John this year should not go without commencement, like because this is a guy, a coach who has like literally been to hell and back, or I guess been to Europe and back and coaching, and still like worked his way back up the ladder, a ladder that he was at the top of for a long time in the college game, and obviously runs into a little Italian restaurant scandal, but outside of that, like he's literally gotten St. John's back on the national stage, and a really, really good job by him. They very well could have won that game last night, but Duke was obviously the better team. And I wanted to kind of get your opinion on this, Alex, because Duke is one of those teams where they're very good, right? Obviously, they win the ACC. They had a season for the ages. They lose that one late season game to UNC, but then they just go on an absolute tear and start blowing teams out. They play a few close games in the ACC tournament, but it's the close games that I kind of want to focus on, because last night you could say was a closer game, and they've run into this a few times, with they were tied with Michigan State late in that game. Florida State played them close twice this year, both in the regular season and the ACC tournament. They had a 1-point win over Florida. This is a team that has kind of been battle tested, and I don't know. I keep going back and forth on that, which is why I want to kind of ask you. This is like, I can't tell if it's like a good thing that this team has been battle tested and been playing all these close games, or if it's a flaw in their armor, if you know what I'm saying.
So I think now we're late enough in the tournament, even the Elite Eight. At this point, I don't think it could be used as a flaw anymore. I think it's something heading into the tournament that I was kind of pointing at. It's why I didn't think Duke was going to be capable to get to a Final Four. We'll see. I have UConn, and I still think I would take UConn right now. Although I'll admit the way Duke is playing after last night and seeing Caleb Foster and get healthy and everything, that kind of changes the dynamic here a little bit. But I think they're just winning a lot of close games is more of a pre-tournament thing for me, at least, than it is now, because we're deep in this thing. I mean, they're in the Elite Eight. They're a win away from getting to Indianapolis for the Final Four. So I don't view it as a negative anymore, if anybody did. I understand the thought, though, about them. I will still look at the other number one seeds, and we other than Florida, who was already eliminated, of course, but what Michigan did last night, and then seeing ultimately what Arizona was able to do. I still put Duke behind Arizona, for example. I still put Duke behind Michigan. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's kind of where I still would look at the number one seeds. They haven't vaulted past Michigan. Yaxel was unbelievable last night for Michigan. And then Arizona, what have they done to dissuade you from any view on them?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's funny. Obviously I picked Duke to win it all in my bracket, but I think you make a great point. I think as we're looking at it right now, they're maybe at best, just by the way teams have been playing, probably the fourth best team left in the Elite Eight. And but yeah, Arizona. Hey, look, I was clowning on them, and I think a lot of the country was. Maybe they heard it, maybe they didn't, but Arizona looks like they are on a mission. They look like they looked prior to heading into Lawrence in the regular season, right?
Yeah.
Like that was like kind of like the turning point where they, started to falter a little bit in the regular season. But before that, looked dominant, looked unbeatable. And technically they were unbeatable. And but now they look to have found that game again. I did not expect them to win in the Sweet 16. I that was actually where I had them getting bounced, but they came out and dominated a really good Arkansas team. Now, an Arkansas team that's kind of limited in numbers, really, they really only have 7 guys essentially that can play. But I thought Arkansas was going to roll through that region. It turns out it's Arizona that is like, hey guys, just remember we're 1 seed for a reason, and my goodness, they look like they're unbeatable. That's a team that you got a really good close look at there in Kansas City in Big 12 play.
Yeah.
Do you think they look almost even better now than they did during the regular season before that little skid they had?
Well, I think as you pointed out, heading into the first loss of the year that they had, which was in Lawrence at Allen Fieldhouse, They were undefeated. They were a healthy team. Then they started to have some injuries, hit a little skid, and then by the time they got to the Big 12 tournament, and I saw them play a couple times in person there. They were healthy again, and that's when they once again were the number one team in the country, and why I did pick them to win the national title. And I think what we're seeing is just a fully healthy squad that has some experience mixed in with a guy that's going to be drafted in, I don't know, maybe the top 5, depending on who you believe overall. I think Tommy Lloyd is one of the better coaches in the country as well. We'll get to the coaching carousel because his name naturally is coming up with the UNC opening, and we'll get into whether or not Bill Self is actually going to retire or not. So there's plenty there. But yeah, Arizona has done nothing. In fact, they've only enhanced my belief in their ability to eventually get to a Final Four and eventually cut down the net there in Indianapolis. Now, I do want to get to the other number 1 seed here off the top, and then we'll have Justin Williams from The Athletic join us also here in about 10 minutes or so, and that's Michigan. Michigan, Alabama, we kind of knew going in, Austin, this was a terrible matchup for Alabama, and it lived right up to that. This game was not close from start to finish. It ends up being a 90-77 win, and I get it. At halftime, you could argue it was a 2-point margin, but I don't care. This was a terrible matchup for Alabama going in, and we saw it was the interior, right? Inside the paint was going to be a struggle for Alabama, and maybe it took a half for it to really become an issue for them. But Yaxel was phenomenal, another double-double for him. This Michigan team, while I would put them at this point based on play, you can make a case that maybe somebody likes Duke better than Michigan. I still have Arizona, Michigan squaring off in an eventual Final Four on one side of the bracket, Arizona beating Michigan. That's just how I see it playing out, and I'll stick with that. But this was never going to be a good matchup for Alabama. And so many times throughout the tournament, we talk about the matchup, right? And you can be a great team, but you just run into a team that doesn't fit your style of play. And Alabama, while I don't know if they were a Final Four team anyway, this was probably the worst case scenario. They were hoping to not have to get into the 1 seed matchup with Michigan, and Michigan did not get upset. And so I would have been stunned if Alabama were to pull this off anyway. So this was not a surprising result last night.
Yeah, you got to hand it to Dusty Maine. He's got Michigan rolling right now. I think going back to the ranking of the Elite 8 teams that are left, I think Michigan's my number 2, and you could make an argument for number 1 team left of the teams left available. They just seem like an absolute force right now. And maybe it was the game in DC against Duke that kind of screwed their heads on straight, but they look good and really kind of unstoppable. You're right. It was it was close at half, but it did seem like Michigan was going to take control in the second half. And, the one area of Alabama basketball where I do think they are just unbeatable, and that's with their equipment manager, Garrett Walker. I want to give him a shout out. He's my best friend from high school growing up.
Are you serious?
He was in, yeah.
No kidding.
Serious.
All right.
He was in Chicago this weekend. Now, I will say this. He brought his family to Chicago, and so we were unable to meet up for beers or for dinner. And I'm not going to say that's why Alabama got bounced, but I'm also not saying it. So just know that if Alabama's looking for fingers to point, it's not Nate Oates' fault. It's not it's not the it's not the way they play, their offensive system or anything like that. That's their equipment manager, Garrett Walker, not making time to grab.
Shout out to him.
Dinner with me. Yeah. So, yeah.
These are the consequences of turning down dinner invites. From Austin.
Look, if you're in Chicago, you got to get dinner with me, or else bad things happen. That's all I'm saying.
That goes for our crew. Now, some of our crew lives in Chicago, but now this is noted. I like going to Chicago, and I haven't been in a couple of years, but this is a good reminder, I guess. If I'm in Chicago, yeah. I should either not tell you and be completely incognito, or yes. I'm in trouble. It's going to be bad for the show, I think, overall, is what you're saying.
Yeah, if I know that you are in Chicago and you don't, and we don't link up to grab at least one round, then it is, then look out for Kansas Jayhawks basketball or the Chiefs, bad things will happen for, your teams.
Yeah, our guy Max, one of our producers behind the scenes, says if he's in Chicago, he'll meet up to you, but you got to pay. He said you got to pay. You got to buy dinner.
Oh, guys, first round's always on me. Now, the rounds after that, look, who's to say, really? But I will always grab the first round, for sure.
That's very fair. All right, real quick before we get our guest on here in about 6 minutes or so, UConn, Michigan State. We haven't talked about that one yet, and I know we'll get into it. And the matchup that it sets up, which is UConn and Duke. I mean, come on now, that's an incredible Elite Eight that we're about to get coming up tomorrow. We're gonna have to wait another day for that one, but UConn 67-63 winner against Tom Izzo and Michigan State. Terrace Reed probably has not got enough love throughout this NCAA tournament and what he continues to do. Terrace Reed Jr., I guess that is, scored 20 yesterday. We all know in earlier in the opening round of the tournament what he was capable of doing. He was sensational. This UConn team, this is how they've been winning all year, though. This is this style of game, and the question I would have for them: can they get Duke into this particular style of game? A little bit lower scoring basketball game, more of a defensive battle. Are they able to do that? Michigan State doesn't have the same scores of a Duke. There's not a Cam Boozer on a Michigan State team. And so I do wonder about UConn against Duke, and that's my only concern. When I had UConn getting into the Final Four, I had Duke losing, so UConn was not facing Duke in this particular matchup tomorrow. So I'm a little worried about UConn's chances there. But this was a game in which UConn was favored for a reason, and it was closer than I thought it would be late. Give Michigan State credit. They were able to battle back because this looked like it was also going to be a game, Austin, where UConn was going to roll. They were up, 8 points, 10 points, 8 points at halftime, I guess it would have been. And so you thought, oh, man, they're going to run away. And it tightened up late. Michigan State was able to actually outscore them in the second half.
Yeah, I think they were up as many as maybe like 12 or something in the first half. But, yeah, UConn, I give it up for Dan Hurley because this is now his third legitimate shot to win a national title with essentially his third different roster. Because with the amount of turnover that he's had, I think he's only got one holdover that was on those two national championship winning teams that he's got. So I gotta, I think it's really impressive. I think there's just some coaches that are built for March. Another one that I think we need to talk about later on in the show is Rick Barnes. I used to clown on Rick Barnes.
How about Tennessee?
Harder than anyone. Yeah, right. I used to clown on Rick Barnes so hard. But I to the point where I can't anymore. Dan Hurley, same thing. They maybe this is probably the weakest looking team he's had coming into a March, but now it's this is oh yeah, we're remembering quickly. Yeah, you can't really bet against a Dan Hurley led team, and they proved it. They just kind of outmuscled Michigan State, and now here they are. I think they have legitimate case to make it to the Final Four, if not the national championship.
Going into this tournament, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I know at least against the spread, and to your point overall, Dan Hurley's been one of the best coaches in the last 5 years against the spread. No surprise, he's got a couple national titles mixed in there, but even from a betting angle, if you're betting over at BetMGM, he has been a pretty solid bet. Some coaches just fare well in the tournament and how they set up the one game at a time or one weekend at a time and turn it into just a 2-game tournament every single weekend and don't try to look too big picture with it. And also I thought, UConn, you were wondering, would there be any somewhat of a distraction? One of their assistant coaches got a head coaching job. I think it was this week as well, but not a problem, at least last night, as they defeated Michigan State. And it sets up an epic Elite Eight matchup tomorrow against number 1 overall seed Duke. Let's keep talking college hoops. We're just getting started here on BetMGM Game Day. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. Up next, we're going to head out to the phones, welcome in Justin Williams from The Athletic to talk more about the 2 Elite Eight games we have today and some more bigger picture with college basketball as we still have that opening at North Carolina.
Nebraska led for most of this game. And then Iowa just with a great finish.
The Iowa Hawkeyes are going to the Elite Eight. Coming from behind to win.
Your weekend sports conversation rolls on with BetMGM Game Day right here on Westwood One Sports.
Kevin Harlan, Stan Van Gundy on the call there. That was an epic finish between Iowa and Nebraska. It sets up one of our Elite Eight matchups coming up later on tonight with Iowa and Illinois as the Big Ten continues to have a very, very strong showing in the NCAA tournament. And as we talk some more tournament, don't forget this segment here on BetMGM Game Day is sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com. Alex Gold, Austin Huff, continuing to talk some tournament, and we welcome in Justin Williams, who covers college hoops for The Athletic. If you don't already, give him a follow at Williams_Justin on Twitter and X. Justin, I'll start with last night, and we can work our way to some of these Elite Eight matchups we're getting. Was there a team in their performance, whether it was Thursday or Friday, that maybe changed your opinion on what they're capable of doing over the next week or two?
Yeah, I think the Illinois win over Houston was really impressive. You know, Houston, it's a team I watched a lot this year, that they're really tough. And I think Illinois, you know, maybe unfairly, but I think there was just like a reputation that they were offensive and maybe a little soft. And so going up against Houston in Houston, like that would be a tough matchup for them. And just, you know, I guess it wouldn't be Illinois' best offensive effort, but most teams don't have that against Houston. But for the way that they kind of held tough and played Houston defensively, and, you know, I think we're kind of the bigger, badder team in that game. You know, that was a big win for Underwood in the program to get to the Elite Eight, and then kind of to have a chance to get to the Final Four. To me, that was maybe the most surprising outcome of the weekend.
Will Illinois be able to recreate that magic in the Elite Eight now that alcohol sales have been banned in the Champaign-Urbana area? Is that
Look, I saw that. I also know, you know, I trust that those Illinois fans, if they put their mind to it, you know, that they can find a way to get where they need to be.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because that's, I mean, the name of your town is literally Champaign. I don't know how you can do that, especially, like, if you're running for re-election, there's no shot of, you know, just don't even try, because after a ruling like this, feels brutal. But no, Justin, I want to ask you about, I feel like one of the most underrated coaches, which is funny because this is a guy I used to clown like crazy, especially for his March performances. But a guy who has gone 11-3 in his last 14 tournament games, Rick Barnes, third straight Elite Eight in taking Tennessee back to back to back. With a chance, real legitimate chance of, you know, potentially taking down Michigan to go to his second Final Four. But, you know, this is a guy, he's won 5 regular season championships. He's won the SEC tournament. He's won Coach of the Year twice in the SEC, 3 times in the Big 12. Like, at what point do we start including Rick Barnes with the elite head coaches in the sport?
Yeah, I mean, what he's done, you mentioned the 3 straight Elite Eight. So I'm in Chicago right now. I was at the game last night. I was actually in Philly last weekend. So I've seen every tournament game Tennessee's played this year. And frankly, it's like you watch them and you're like, how the heck did this team get a 6 seed? You know, I know they kind of struggled at the end of the regular season and down the stretch a little bit, but they're so big and so physical and so deep. You know, every game, Jalen Carey, Ament, Boswell, you know, Gillespie. It's like they have different guys showing up, Estrella, you know, guys coming off the bench and having an impact. And you got to give Barnes a lot of credit. Like, he's always had talent, like you said, but he's definitely shed that reputation. We were looking it up last night. So I think Shire also just went to 3 straight Elite Eight. And it had been a while before that. I think Billy Donovan did it 3 or 4 years in a row with Florida, like 2011 to 2014. Cal, Roy Williams, you know, these guys have done it, but it's been, you know, over a decade now since anyone else has done it. And, you know, the thing with Tennessee, I think they're like 3rd or 4th of most tournament appearances without a Final Four. They're now in first place by a few victories for most tournament wins without a Final Four. And so that's a tough stat, right? Like that's the one Tennessee fans hate because they haven't gotten that Final Four. But also just, a lot of teams would kill to have 34 career, wins in the NCAA tournament, even if they hadn't gotten to a Final Four. So I know that's what everyone wants. They got a tough matchup against Michigan, but I'm with you. I think the past couple of years, and this year especially doing it as a 6 seed, Rick Barnes has shed that reputation as the guy who can't win in the tournament, in my opinion.
We're talking to Justin Williams, covers college hoops for The Athletic. While we're keying in on some of the coaching right now, how about Ben McCollum at Iowa? We know it's year one for him. By now, everybody kind of knows his story, going from Northwest Missouri State to Drake, now to Iowa, and he's got them a game away from getting to a Final Four. What is it about Ben McCollum in Iowa that has allowed them to go from being a 9 seed in year one for him at Iowa to knocking off Florida and then doing what they did the other night against a Nebraska team that had a significant lead late?
Yeah, McCollum Magic. Like, this is the guy's second year as a Division I head coach. He was at Drake last year for one season. You mentioned, before that, obviously had a ton of success in Division II. And look, part of it is just this happens in March. The team got hot at the right time. I think Sturts is healthy. They've obviously had some big shots and some big moments. But, not to go fully cliche, but like this is a guy who, won a bunch of national championships at the Division II level. I think on some level, like winning is a skill. And there's been a bunch of stuff written. CJ Moore, one of my colleagues at Athletic, wrote a great story about McCollum's like preparation, how he crams for these opponents and just has really gotten Iowa kind of ready for these games. But, a lot of coaches work really hard and game plan really well. And a lot of coaches have really talented players. And I think you just got to kind of chalk some of it up to this guy has won at every level he's been at. And whatever it is that he's doing, I think, did you hear the interview Sturts did after the game where he was like, yeah, after we were down 10-0 early, he told us we sucked and we were soft. Like, he just has a way of, knowing how to motivate his players and doing a really good job of understanding who he has and what their strengths are. And so, again, part of it's a little bit of luck this time of year, but I also think you just got to look at that guy's track record.
Justin Williams, senior writer who covers college basketball for The Athletic, is with us right now. And Justin, it's funny. Well, one of the most talked about teams this tournament is a team that's not even in the tournament. Got bounced in the first round, UNC. Obviously, they fired Hubert Davis. If you had to guess, where do you think UNC will go with this hire, and where do you think they should go with this hire?
So, like I mentioned, I'm in Chicago. We had Iowa State with Otzelberger, Nate Oates at Alabama. We had Rick Barnes at Tennessee, and then Dusty May at Michigan. And then, before those Sweet 16 games, it was funny. All of them, except for Barnes, kind of were on the list of candidates and got asked about it. And someone mentioned to Barnes, like, hey, you might be the only coach here today that doesn't get asked about the North Carolina opening. And great deadpan from Rick Barnes. He said, well, I'm from North Carolina. So, maybe throwing a little bit out there. But no, it seems like, Tommy Lloyd is definitely on their radar. And look, that'll be interesting because this is a guy who can go win a national championship this year. I picked Arizona in my bracket. That's not like a huge surprise. A lot of people picked Arizona. I know Billy Donovan's name has been mentioned too, but I think it's interesting that for obvious reasons, Tommy Lloyd's going to be high on that list, and it's tough to turn down Carolina. What if this guy goes and wins the national championship at Arizona? Like, that would be pretty shocking to see him do that and then leave, even if he got to a Final Four and then left. But obviously, because of the success that he's having, it makes sense why he would be interested. Everyone's going to listen if North Carolina calls. But it seems like Tommy Lloyd's at the top of their wish list probably, and for good reasons.
You mentioned Arizona, and yeah, they're a win away from getting to a Final Four with Tommy Lloyd. They at one point were undefeated for a good chunk of the season. They're healthy again. The 2 games today, Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Arizona. Do we see both favorites win in your opinion, or do we have another upset in store tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still rolling with Arizona. Like I said, they're my title pick. Great end of the season run here for Purdue. Arizona's just, they're such a buzzsaw, and that doesn't mean Purdue can't win that game. But I think Arizona has looked like the number 1 seed that they've gotten this year. Man, I have no idea what to expect in this Iowa-Illinois game. Like it's funny. It feels like a either a November football game or like a January, conference matchup. It's great that we're getting these two teams, but Illinois has been really good all season, but it's just, how do you make a judgment based on what you've seen from Iowa the past couple games? So I guess I would lean towards Illinois, but man, I don't know. If you watch it and you see Iowa pull out some magic again, I think you feel like an idiot for going against them. So that one to me is the most exciting because I have the least sense of how that game's going to go.
I think the winner of that game should get the Chicago Bears, because if you remember when the Bears were, threatening leaving for Indiana, Iowa also threw their hat in the ring, say, hey, we're just as close as Indiana is. Why not give us the Bears? So I think the winner of Iowa, Illinois should get the Chicago Bears.
Look, I think, obviously if Purdue got to the Final Four in Indianapolis, that would be great because it's the home state team. They'd be a bunch of fans. Either Illinois or Iowa, whoever makes it, they're going to be in Indianapolis in full force. And, you mentioned before the alcohol ruling in Champaign. I have full confidence that either one of those teams are going to be clearing out the Indianapolis area.
Yeah, there's not a ruling in Indianapolis like that, is there?
No, not as far as I understand it.
Okay.
I don't. Something tells me that will not be happening Final Four weekend in Indy. All right, Justin. Before we let you go, I do have to ask you about Duke, who of course are now going to set up a matchup against number 2 UConn tomorrow. We were discussing, it feels like here comes Duke. They're getting healthy again. I was definitely discounting them entering the tournament. I have them not making it to the Final Four. But what we saw last night and seeing how Caleb Foster came in, even though he's not 100%. Did that do enough to convince you, and maybe you already were, that this Duke team, after all this, is going to end up getting to a Final Four and maybe actually cutting down the nets?
Yeah, it's funny. We've talked for 10, 15 minutes now. We haven't even mentioned Duke UConn, right? Which I feel like is the marquee game of this Elite Eight weekend. I saw UConn and Philly last weekend. Reed, Caravan, when those two guys are rolling, man, UConn is tough, and I think we saw that in the second half, last night's game for sure. But I do feel like Duke's getting healthy, like you mentioned, and I'm going to be interested to see, how does UConn defend Boozer? How does Duke defend Reed? I think that's going to be kind of maybe an interesting, game within the game to see how those two guys play and if one of them can avoid foul trouble. But it feels like the depth of Duke, now that everyone's getting healthy, is going to be too much for UConn. If not, I think it means that someone on UConn, Braylon Mullins, solo ball, one of these guys is going to, Silas DeMary, one of these guys is going to pop up and have a huge game. I think that's what it's going to take for UConn to win. But just based on everyone, Foster coming back and everyone looking healthy, I'm leaning Duke in that one.
Duke, a 5.5-point favorite in that one. Michigan, a 7.5-point favorite against Tennessee. Those are the two Elite Eight matchups coming up on Sunday. Justin Williams, senior college basketball writer for The Athletic, also covers college football in the fall there for The Athletic. Appreciate, man, and enjoy the games coming up tomorrow.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks, Justin.
From Justin Williams, at Williams_Justin. And I guess I said tomorrow. How about today? He's in Chicago. So he's got action today to watch right there in Chicago with Illinois. You should try to bump over there, man. You're right there in Chicago.
I know.
What are tickets going these days for an Elite Eight final in Chicago? Or a national final, I should say.
You know what? That's a great question. I'm going to look that up right now. For
regional final, I mean, look, you've got for regional final 2 fan bases that definitely can get to Chicago fairly easily. Not just, well, actually, I guess Illinois, Iowa. I guess I got that butchered. Iowa, Illinois is in Houston. My bad, man. I butchered that. Iowa,
Michigan.
Illinois is in Chicago.
Michigan, Tennessee tomorrow night.
Yeah, there we go.
I could get in for $120. It's section 300. It's the 300 level for $120. So,
okay.
Look, maybe you get a flight up here, Alex. We have our first show outing, and we hit up this game, and then like I said, first round's on me.
I would have done that if my alma mater did not disappoint last weekend against St. John's. But no, for clarity, I butchered the regions there. Iowa, Illinois is playing in Houston. My apologies. And then in the Midwest region, it is Tennessee and Michigan, and obviously Duke UConn going to be playing in DC tomorrow. So those are the regions. Got those messed up, but you should try to maybe head over to a game tomorrow if tickets drop a little bit. All right, up next, let's pivot briefly to some big news yesterday, unfortunately involving Tiger Woods as we are approaching Masters Week, and now a major setback for that, and more importantly, just another serious personal matter involving the great Tiger Woods. We'll have some thoughts on that coming up right here on Westwood One Sports.
Smart takes, real stakes. The weekend starts now with BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
You know what March means for college hoops. Lock in for every game and make your March moment when you bet with boosted odds. Activate your Odds Boost token for any March matchups bet and to receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. Here's how it works. Your March matchups Odd Boost token has already been dropped into your account. You don't have to opt in. It's not necessary. Add a March matchups bet up to the specified maximum stake to your bet slip, then activate the token. And if you win your bet with the token activated, you'll score extra winnings over at BetMGM. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we will talk some baseball, man. Opening day has already happened across all baseball.
Yes.
We had the opener on Wednesday night. I got some thoughts on that Netflix opener, too, we can get to. But it is nice to have baseball all day long, once again, on the television, on the radio. We will have a guest joining us coming up from MLB.com in just a little bit here in about 15 minutes or so. We'll check in on that with Rowan Kavner and ask him what we saw in the first couple days and just kind of talk bigger picture baseball season and early thoughts on the ABS system, which is in full play right now, and including a catcher last night that was 3 for 3 on calling out umpires for bad strike calls, or ball calls, I should say. So we'll get to that in just a bit. But on a much more serious note, and unfortunately, one, it's you don't want to see this for anybody, but also as a selfish sports fan, I hate seeing this because I was hoping to see one of the all-time greats, if not the greatest of all time, of course, and Tiger Woods tee it up again at Augusta in a few weeks there. But you guys are well aware, I'm sure by now, of the news yesterday where Tiger Woods was involved in a rollover crash in Florida. That was according to the Martin County Sheriff's Office. He has been arrested, charged with DUI, property damage, and refusal to submit to a urine analysis test, according to the Sheriff's Office. And they say he showed signs of impairment Friday at the scene of the car crash in which he struck another vehicle, rolled over his Land Rover. Fortunately, nobody was injured, including himself, in this entire ordeal. The mugshot is out there. Obviously not a great situation for Tiger Woods, who we all know the history there in the past with some pain medication and misuse of that. And it sure seems like that's what we're discussing again here for Tiger. I think it's very simple for a lot of people to just say, hey, man, have somebody else start driving you around. Like, what are you even driving for anymore if you're going to be on pain meds and if you're going to struggle with perhaps abusing said pain meds for all the surgeries and everything he's had? So it's a really sad situation for starters, just on a human level. And I know it's magnified because it's Tiger Woods, right? But this is something that unfortunately happens for way too many people to begin with. But he's fortunate. How many instances can you have before we're talking about Tiger Woods, killing somebody, or Tiger Woods, unfortunately,
right,
killing himself because of putting himself in these situations. So first and foremost, that's the first reaction, and then there's the sports end to it, which is I honestly thought he was going to make a return to Augusta in 2 weeks or whatever it is, and now I think it's pretty clear that's not going to happen. And I wonder if we'll ever see him play at Augusta.
Yeah, when I first got the news story pinged to my phone, it literally took me back to that Friday after Thanksgiving in, 2009, 2010, when, with when the whole Elin story broke.
Yeah, and, the driveway stuff,
that there was... Right. Tiger was involved in a wreck, and, you're starting to think, like, is Tiger okay? Like, is he alive? And, you hear the news story this time was Tiger involved in a rollover crash early morning Friday in Florida. And you're thinking, your mind is racing. You're like, geez, I hope this isn't, what I think it could be. And, granted, it's not like it was good news. It's good news that he's alive, but it's not great for Tiger. Like, this is a guy who continues to just fall. This is now his second DUI, his second rollover crash. That he was impaired, but there were no alcohol involved. He blew a 0.00 on the breathalyzer. There were no drugs or medication found on the scene. But I mean, this is in Florida, with first conviction of DUI, and you're looking at imprisonment for up to 6 months, a fine of up to $1,000. Like, we could see Tiger, face some jail time. Now, granted, I'm sure he's got.
I would be shocked. I would be shocked.
Yeah, this is
you and I both would.
Right. Sure, sure, but it is possible just based on the law in Florida, and I mean, it's a guy who's worth $1.5 billion according to Forbes. And you're right, the easy take here is to be like, hey, if you're impaired, hire a driver full time. You could very easily cover that cost. He's set the PGA Tour record for winning of 121 million in prize money over the years. Like, get a driver. That is the easy take. But really, I feel like this is a guy who is in quicksand. The harder he tries to make it back, just the deeper he sinks. And I mean that from the grand scope of things. Obviously, the legal issues that we're dealing with right now, but even just with the injuries and everything, from the sports angle, this is a guy that is he's struggling. And I don't know if or how we will ever see, Tiger Woods in a PGA Tour event. I'm sure we will eventually, but it's just the man needs some serious help in a lot of different facets in his world. And I think because he doesn't have that driving force of the golf and the fame that he was so accustomed to for the first, decade plus of his career, that's probably starting to eat at him, and he's probably starting to deal with some serious, I don't want to speculate, but I could only imagine, like, if it was me in that situation, I know my mind would be going, to dark places, and you hate to see that from one of the game's best and one of sports' best athletes. And I really hope that he does find the help needed to get back to at least just to a stable mindset.
Right. And look, no matter, whatever it is exactly he's dealing with, and you pointed out the winning that he has had and the money and everything like that, but that, mental health and any other struggles do not discriminate, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have in the bank account or anything like that. And so, he's getting the headlines because he's Tiger Woods. But it sucks, frankly. I mean, if I want to really just be real with you, it just sucks to see. Nobody wants to see anybody going through this.
Sure.
And also, for a lot of people out there, this is somebody's role model or hero or whatever it may be, and to see this happen again. You mentioned, I think off air, we were talking about he was just part of his, the TGL. Admittedly, I really don't watch that, but the TGL simulated golf stuff that's on ESPN wasn't the final. Was that Tuesday night?
Yeah.
Or am I off a week?
Yeah, it was. And yeah, the big news, the headlines, if if you're not you don't actually click the links and you just read headlines, you saw Tiger Woods returns to competitive golf, and you get excited. Well, it's just it's hitting into a simulator, and he only ended up taking 9 swings at the event. But that was like, okay, well, maybe Augusta's not out of the question. I know it's coming up here very soon, but what if he does try and take a hack at the Masters, make another run at it? And I mean, if you remember the last time he won the Masters was just a year or two removed from his first DUI. When
that was 2017 was the last. Yeah, the 2017 was the prior DUI that he had. And then, so what was it? Was that 2019 or 2018?
2019, I think, is when he won the Masters. Yeah. So, but then Friday morning, you get hit with this news, and you're just like, dang it, not again. And I mean, it's just, it's kind of one of those, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me situations. That's what it's feeling like, Tiger's he's just, he's hitting a dark place. And I think the guy just, I don't know. I really hope that he finds the help that he gets, because he can make too much of a positive impact on this world than to see it take this kind of turn.
Do you think we see him at obviously not in 2 weeks, but do you think we see him play at Augusta at some point, or the Masters ever again? He's 50.
See, now I don't think so.
But he's 50.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess nobody knows for sure. I still think we probably do at some point, but this certainly delayed what that might look like. Coming up next, we'll move away from this a little bit. Obviously, the big news around Tiger Woods, but we're going to get to what has been much more uplifting during the week, and that is opening day in Major League Baseball. We'll get to that. We'll be joined by our guest from MLB.com next.
Game lines, headlines, and hard opinions. This is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
Alex Gold, Austin Huff hanging out with you here on BetMGM Game Day. Don't forget you can watch the show as well if you check out YouTube, youtube.com/BetMGM tonight. Also our Twitch channel. Otherwise, you can listen on our affiliates across the country over on the Westwood One Sports app, also the Odyssey app, and on SiriusXM channel 375. We'll certainly get back into college hoops later on in the show as we've got two marquee Elite Eight showdowns. And don't forget our friends over at BetMGM. If they score the most points, you'll score bonus bets. For each round of March matchups, you have the opportunity to predict which team will score the most points. If you're correct, you'll win a share of bonus bets. All you have to do to get this offer, 3 easy steps. Enter the March matchups. $500,000 pick-em free-to-play game. Pick which team you think will score the most points in any round of the tournament. And if the team you selected scores the most points that round, you'll win a share of bonus bets. But man, it feels good, Austin, to start talking a little baseball, man. Opening day earlier this week, and we get to welcome in Rowan Kavner right now on the Westwood One, and he joins us at Rowan Kavner on X, member of the Baseball Writers Association of America, and of course an MLB writer for Fox Sports. It's great to have you on the show for a variety of reasons. One, we appreciate the insight. Two, it just means we're talking baseball again. So let me back up a little bit to opening night. What did you make of just how baseball tried to have this marquee Wednesday night opener out west and Netflix and maybe the worst Rob Manfred interview I've ever seen? What was your take?
My take was maybe next time the first ever ABS challenge should maybe be televised. I don't know. That would probably be fun. You can't miss that one. That's a bad miss there. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm more in favor of having that opening day where everyone's playing kind of at the same time. You're watching baseball all day. It's a little bit weird to just have the one game right before that. It's fine. I mean, if that can somehow get more viewership or more people that maybe wouldn't have been watching otherwise to watch the game, that'd be great. Would have been better if it was a better game or if the Giants put up some runs. That might have been a little bit more fun. But yeah, I'm more a fan of just doing it all on one day.
Rowan, with the implementation of the new ABS system, look, I hate to put you on the spot here, but we have to do this. We need both your roster height, but then also your actual height down to the millimeter. Because guys like Gavin Lux went from 6'2" down to actually being 5'11". Alex Bregman I think was 6 feet with the Astros, and now he's 5'10" with the Cubs. So guys are just losing inches. So it is completely normal. But what is your roster height, and then what is your actual height?
Okay, my roster height is 6 foot. My ABS height is 5'10".
Okay.
All right. It's a solid 5'10". I feel comfortable with that. I could be pushing 5'11". But the roster height would say 6 foot. I think I'm pretty confident. It's funny talking to some of these teams about it because they don't even remember. Some teams are like, I'm pretty sure I just sort of like, you'll talk to some of the PR staffs. It's like, I'm pretty sure we just sort of like said, does this look good? And they're like, yeah. Some teams do it probably a little bit more down to the inch, a little bit more correctly. But a lot of these teams, I mean, it's kind of like self-reporting. And so obviously now it's different and it is down to the inch. And we'll see how this goes. I know some people are more in favor of it than others. I like it. You could argue that maybe there should be a little bit of a buffer zone because I don't think the purpose is, hey, that pitch was a centimeter off and that's what we're trying to fix. You're trying to fix the egregious ones. I think this is probably the best way to do it. The only kind of weird part is like an inning-ending strikeout and you got the fans going crazy and then you just have to maybe wait and you're like, maybe take some of the part of it out of it a little bit. But look, you're getting it more accurate. Overall, I think it's the right thing to do. And there'll probably be some hiccups along the way, but by year's end, it'll be like everything else was with the pitch clock where you just sort of get used to it.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated to see, maybe it's too early in the year for this and we're just getting started, but when do we have some real tension between the home plate ump and the batter or the pitcher? And like at some point, I mean, like even last night, Salvador Perez, the Royals were playing the Braves, and I think he was 3 for 3 on overturning, some close
bottom of the
one
strike
was more
zone.
egregious. Yeah. I mean, at one point now, Salvi and the umps have got a pretty good relationship given his career, or for 15 years or whatever it is now. But do you think we might have an incident at some point in the next month? And what do you think that means for ABS?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest incident is just that it starts to like embarrass a home plate ump, but like then be better. I mean, like I don't know what
Right.
like at that point it's like this isn't an opinion. I mean, this is what it is, and if you're consistently maybe missing up or consistently maybe missing down, you maybe have to kind of adjust it a little bit here and there. But the interesting thing so far, I think it almost feels like, especially the hitters are have been a little bit hesitant to do it. Like there's been occasions, especially kind of in those seventh and eighth innings. I'm thinking back to the Cubs game and their opener, where there were a couple pitches, I think, off the plate. And I think the hitters are a little bit like, I don't want to be the one to get embarrassed by doing this wrong and losing it. And those are maybe kind of rally killers a little bit. So I'm going to be interested to see if hitters, once they start to get a little bit more comfortable with what the box is, if they're a little bit more bold about doing that, especially once you get to those later innings.
Rowan Kaffner joins us right now, MLB writer for Fox Sports, and we got to talk about the one team that nobody wants to talk about. It's the team that has literally taken on the role as bad guys, at least according to their team-produced hype video leading into the season. But the Los Angeles Dodgers, last night, obviously, they've played both nights thus far, and they've gone 2-0, beating the Diamondbacks in a way that we kind of all expected with the roster that they have. And last night they did it with their two newest additions, with Kyle Tucker driving in the game-winning RBI, and then Edwin Diaz coming in via the close and came out to a live rendition of his trumpet theme. And so it begs the old wedding debate. Rowan, are you a wedding band guy or a DJ guy?
You know what? I'm a DJ guy because if you have an incredible band, like it's got to be so good, I think, for it to be worth it. If it's great, that's great. If it's an okay band, give me the DJ. I mean, I'd rather just like have something I can rely on with songs that I know people are going to want to hear, and you can kind of change it up a little bit. If you have a great band, that's great, but it's got to be like really good. I was at both those Dodgers games. I'm LA based out here, so that was fun to see. And yeah, I mean, look, they look like the juggernaut you would kind of expect them to be. That opening night, the offense kind of wasn't really going, and then all of a sudden you get a hit, and then you're stringing it together. And when you have Ohtani getting on base and Kyle Tucker knocking somebody in, and then you're the pitcher and you have to look up, and then it's Betts, Freeman, Will Smith, Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, and that's like basically the bottom of the lineup now. I mean, it's daunting. And so it's like, you'll have these stretches with them where they're going to go a few innings at a time and not get anybody on base. The minute someone gets on, it's like, okay, here we go. It's daunting. And Tucker makes it's such a difference when you're going from having Conforto out there last year, who was a below replacement level player, to Kyle Tucker. It's huge. It's massive to have Edwin Diaz back there instead of it being Tanner Scott. And Scott also has looked a little bit better, and I think they're expecting a bounce back from him. I mean, that roster's loaded. There's going to be injuries. They're going to treat these guys really, really carefully to make sure that their arms are healthy for October. So for those reasons, they're probably not going to end up challenging the wins record. We were talking about that last year, and they ended up winning 93. But that team is loaded, and when healthy, what more can you really say? They're complete.
From the West Coast to the East Coast, the Yankees early 2-0 start to the season. They're playing the Giants. We all saw them open up and were impressive on the opening night. Then we see Cam Schlittler last night. He was phenomenal in his performance, and he kind of burst on the scene a year ago. And I know they've got some guys still that are not healthy yet. How good this rotation be for the Yankees, a month and a half from now when they get Garrett Cole and everybody back?
Yeah, I think the Weather signing too. I know we haven't seen him yet, but I think that was one of the most kind of under the radar sign. I know we just talked about they just kind of brought everybody back, and they're just running it back. They were a pretty good team last year. Running it back isn't the worst thing when that is the roster. And I think the Weather signing is a good under the radar thing, just to sort of keep the baseline up as you mentioned, you're waiting for these guys to come back. And it sounds like Cole's doing well. Rodon shouldn't be that far away. I think they're going to win the division again. I actually expect 4 teams to come out of that division. I know they're going to beat up on each other. I really do. I could totally see Yankees, Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are going to end up being the second best team in that division. And then Blue Jays, Orioles. There's some reasons with that Orioles pitching staff, even still after the Boz deal and the Helsley deal to be concerned. But that offense, I think, can probably do enough to get that final wild card spot. The Westberg and Holiday injuries are big, but if they can come back looking okay, I think there's enough there to do it. They'll have some challengers, obviously. I'm interested to see what the Royals do in the Central. I still think the Tigers are the best team in that division, but I could totally see 4 teams coming out of the East.
You mentioned the AL Central. I'm based in Kansas City, so I hearing you mention the Royals has me intrigued a little bit too. And the Tigers, I'm with you. I think they are kind of the team to beat. But when you look at Kansas City, do you think they have enough in the outfield to kind of get over the hump? That was a big issue last year. It was one of the worst outfields they put together in franchise history.
Yeah, worst in baseball, and it's been that way, right? Like it's like every offseason, I'm like, just get an outfielder. Get in the Luis Robert deal. Do something, like get a real impact guy, and they just don't do it. And we'll see what Isaac Collins can bring there. I wish they would have done something a little bit more impact there, because we'll see what happens with those outfield dimensions too. If that kind of changes anything,
yep.
I don't know how dramatically it'll change anything, but that'll add a couple homers for some of these guys. I think the big thing, I don't know if people, and maybe now because of the WBC. We know that Maikel Garcia has kind of his international moment. You mentioned, being based in Kansas City. Royals fans know how good that guy is. I'm really curious to see if kind of the second year after the breakout is even better. They need him to be that co-star, I think. And it's really just about health. If that rotation stays healthy, you could totally see them challenging for the division title. 1 or 2 of those guys goes down. I don't know if the depth is there to do that, but I think they'll be in the mix.
I think we all remember Thanksgivings past, like when we graduated from the kids table to the adult table, and it feels like one of the teams that has done that this year is a team that probably should have been sitting at the adult table this entire time. But the Chicago Cubs quietly put together an offseason where they spent more than anyone, $488 million put out. And granted, some of those are re-signings of guys that are already on the roster, but important pieces: Pete Crow Armstrong, Nico Horner, and then obviously they bring in Alex Bregman with the big splash signing to fill the void of Kyle Tucker in that offense. But do you see this as a sign of things to come? Do you think the Cubs are now finally going to spend the money that we all know that they have? Like, they very well should be up there with the Mets and the Dodgers in terms of, spending every single year, but they just don't for whatever reason. They kind of play like many owners in Major League Baseball do and play as a small market team, but they've got the power to do so. Obviously playing at an iconic stadium at Wrigley Field. And if you buy one beer, that should fund, at least one third baseman for the team, right? Do you see this as a sign of things to come for the Cubs?
I'm with you that they should. There's no reason ever that they should not be a top 5 payroll at least. And I don't know. I think last year really that if you're gonna go make that move for Kyle Tucker, put some guys, go try to win the thing. Go get a better impact arm then. Go spend for one. I know they traded for Cabrera, and we'll see. I expect them to be the best team in the division. You talk to people in that building, they expect it, and they're being pretty bold about it. I talked to Hobie Milner, who was part of the Brewers bullpens for 3 or 4 years before he went to the Rangers last year, now with the Cubs. And he was just like blatant, like, we expect to win the division. Like, and he was around Milwaukee and those good Milwaukee teams, not the last year's, but, the iterations prior. They expect to do this, and it's time to do this. Look, you break the 4-year playoff drought. I think the next step is clearly winning the division. Again, no one's picking the Brewers to do it. I think they are a playoff team, but I do expect the Cubs to win this division. Now, taking Tucker out of that lineup and putting Bregman in does not make the lineup better. I think the lineup is still very good, but that's a big piece you're losing. I think you could argue the net of having Bregman and the leadership he brings, that's real. I mean, there's only a handful of guys that I think when you talk to people around the league are true, this can change a clubhouse kind of a guy. And not that the clubhouse needs anything. They have a lot of veteran guys who are well respected, but Bregman's that dude. And you talk to some of the young Red Sox guys like Roman Anthony. I mean, he had a real impact in a short amount of time. That was, I think, a big mistake to not bring him back. And obviously they expected to do that. But but he's a real difference maker. Now, how much better will they be? I think they could maybe win the same number of games, maybe one more, and that will be enough to win the division. I think that's the clear next step, and you would hope they would be able to kind of make a little bit of a run. I'm interested to see with this offense. I know they had some ups and downs. The upside for that group is still so high. I think the baseline now for the rotation is higher by bringing in Cabrera and the upside. And I'm interested to see what happens with Cade Horton here. Now, they should probably continue to spend more money. Will they? I don't know. I wanted to see it last year. They didn't do that. Maybe getting kind of embarrassed again by the Brewers will change things here. We'll see. It's good that they're extending some of these guys. They basically had no one under contract after next year until they did these things. It's Dansby obviously was there, but it's now you have your face of the franchise in Pico Armstrong. That now. It's exciting for the future, and they should win the division as they think they will.
Before we let you go, we got Rowan Kavner from Fox Sports joining us here talking some baseball. Last year it was Nick Kurtz and it was Jacob Wilson for a big chunk of the early part of the season, some young players bursting onto the scene. Who do you think that'll be this year? I know Kevin McGonigal, we're 2 games in here, but Kevin McGonigal is the early name that I think people are talking about. Is there a name that we're a betting show that maybe people should be keeping an eye on that could surprise people or be a rookie of the year type of guy?
Yeah. I think, I don't even know if you can call him a dark horse because I don't think people talk enough about Sal Stewart. That dude can hit. I mean, he has hit at every level. The Reds didn't do, I know they brought in Gino Suarez. I wish they would have done more, but Sal Stewart can be a real difference maker in that lineup. He was great late in the year last year. And there's a lot of big names that are, you mentioned some, McGonigal looks awesome and his plate discipline for that team. Another team that didn't do anything to change the lineup. You're just sort of like, I hope this rookie's good. And he looks pretty good. I mean, that could be a real, difference maker there. Murakami's interesting. I'm still concerned about the swing and miss there. He'll hit some home runs, but I think the strikeout totals there could be problematic. But Weatherholt looks like the real deal. I'm interested to see what happens with Connor Griffin. I still kind of like Nolan McLean as the rookie of the year. I know it's hard for a pitcher. Skeens is kind of an outlier there, but that guy's just the stuff he has is incredible. So that would still be what I would think. But yeah, man, Sal Stewart, I would not be at all surprised if he ends up being the rookie of the year in the NL.
Rowan Kavner, MLB writer for Fox Sports, at Rowan Kavner on Twitter and X. Good insight as we get this thing going in baseball, a full Saturday of action as well. Appreciate you coming on the show.
You got it, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Rowan.
Absolutely. Yeah, Austin, the rookie of the year market is always fun this early in the season too, because it's going to fluctuate so much. But yeah, Kevin McGonigal is a name. It's funny, what's been fun for me over the last couple of years, I've really gotten into the sports cards. Right, I've told you about that.
Oh, yeah.
So the prospect game is a lot of fun for the sports cards. And so Kevin McGonigal is a name, frankly, I've only known mainly because of the sports cards. And so I own a couple of his cards, and I'm debating, is this the week to sell when everybody's talking about him, or do I hope that he actually is the rookie of the year and I can maybe flip a few of these cards? If it's not a team that I grew up rooting for, I don't really hold on to those cards. Otherwise, I kind of play the prospect game, but it's fun.
Yeah, no, you got to hold on to it. I think you got to ride that wave.
Okay.
And see how it goes. I wasted one of my last picks in my my fantasy baseball draft on Connor Griffin. So I am just that's kind of like save for a rainy day stock that I put money into. So I'm really hoping that he comes around.
You and me both. I've got a first Bowman auto of Connor Griffin, so I'm hoping that's a good value card at some point. Right now, it's not worth a whole lot, but maybe in a few months. Always good to talk some baseball here, and we certainly will for the months ahead. Up next, though, I do want to pivot to the NFL a little bit. Thinking of money, JSN's got a lot more of it now. He gets a new contract. What does that mean for wide receivers moving forward? We'll touch on that next here on Westwood One.
the gun, gets the snap, four-man rush, moves up, backpedals, throws end zone, caught, touchdown. Far side, Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. And Seattle has grabbed the lead on a 14-yard touchdown reception by one of the great young receivers in pro football, Jackson, Smith, and Jigba.
Breaking down the biggest games and the smartest angles. This is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
Of course, the great Kevin Harlan on the call there on Westwood One. That was JSN, the big completion there. Jackson, Smith, and Jigba feeling pretty good here in the last, we'll call it, how about month, including a Super Bowl ring and now a brand new contract. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. So JSN signs a record-setting 4-year, $168.6 million contract extension with the Seahawks. That does make him the NFL's highest-paid wide receiver. That comes out to about $42.15 a year, over $120 million in guarantees. And they did this earlier than they had to, but you and I have talked so much this offseason about where the league is trending. And we know that we're probably going to 18 games here in the next 2 to 3 years, even though the CBA is not going to be up. We know that means there's going to be new and more streaming partners involved, more money. Means the cap, which is already going up at a crazy rate, is only going to continue to go up. And so I know it seems like a ton of money for Jackson Smith and Jigba, who this year was the best receiver in football, although I don't know if I would say he is the best receiver, if that makes sense in football, despite what he did this past year. But he's going to get paid like it. This is how the game is played. I think in 2 years, the Seahawks are going to actually be sitting pretty good with this deal. I really do, because of the cap situation.
Yeah, no, it's great. Great for JSN. Obviously, it's well-deserved. I mean, the dude is, one of the best receivers in the game. I don't know if he's the best, but he certainly is up there. Like, you can't go far down the list without mentioning his name. And obviously, he's getting paid like it. I think this is great news for the agents of every wide receiver in the league right now, because you've got guys like George Pickens with a, potential deal coming up, and like what is he going to now top that? Other guys like that. I'll never forget a couple years ago when Christian Kirk set the set the new record for wide receiver payments, and that led to holdouts by Deebo Samuel. Ultimately, I believe that led to the trade of A.J. Brown to Philadelphia, because, even though he had one more year left on his deal, he was clamoring for a new deal, which Philadelphia ended up giving him. So it is interesting whenever you have these market-changing deals get signed, because it does create a domino effect for a lot of different teams, and there is no bigger diva position than the wide receiver position in the NFL. And right. So, you probably this will lead to, potential holdouts from guys whose deals are coming up. But good for JSN, good for the Seahawks. The Seahawks needed it. Obviously they, you let Kenneth Walker leave, but you made sure that you locked up probably an even more pivotal asset, even though Kenneth Walker won, Super Bowl MVP. JSN, I think you would argue, is more pivotal to the success of Sam Darnold and that offense than Kenneth Walker was. But it, good on the Seahawks. If you're a Seahawks fan, things are looking up. Obviously, you get the Lombardi Trophy, but now it's like you're trying to keep the band together for next year, and you're looking good heading into 2026.
Yeah, and after what you just did with Sam Darnold, and the deal that you have him on is still fairly team-friendly when you compare it to other quarterbacks and a guy that got you to a Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl, that's also why you can pay JSN this kind of deal. And I really do believe, we can get into where we rank out the top receivers and how many are ahead of JSN. That's fine, but that's not even the point here. Every offseason, we all know, just because you're the highest paid quarterback or wide receiver or running back does not necessarily mean you're the best. I mean, heck, Kenneth Walker, and I love the signing. I love the signing in Kansas City with what he's getting paid. Now, he's not a top 3 or 4 back in football, but he's getting paid as if he is right in that category. JSN to me is probably, I'd have to think about, he's probably, top of my head, the 4th receiver, maybe 5th I would put right now in the league. I still would lump Jefferson or Chase and then Puka before I would probably get to JSN. But this is just the way the game is played. And in a few years, he's not going to be the highest paid wide receiver. And as you said, maybe even later this offseason, he's not the highest paid receiver. So I don't think Seattle's going to regret this deal whatsoever.
No, I don't think so at all. And one thing that's kind of been shocking to me, Alex, I don't know for you, but obviously the free agency period, or well, I guess I should say the legal tampering period, started off with a bang. Signings left and right. It was like walking through a minefield, right? It just explosions everywhere. And now it has really simmered down. The NFL graciously made way for March Madness and let us focus on other sports for a change. But it really has kind of fallen quiet on the Western Front of the NFL. And there's still a lot of big names out there that are still free agents that I'm kind of surprised haven't landed anywhere yet. I know there's some stipulations with the, June 1st signings before and after that some teams wait for. But it is just surprising to me that there are some of these bigger name guys that we know can play and can produce still still haven't signed anywhere. Get names like obviously Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Kirk Cousins is still out there, Debo Samuel. Obviously we have no idea what Aaron Rodgers is going to do, but I'll throw his name on the list. Marshawn Lattimore, there's just big name guys that are still kind of just bobbing in the ocean wanderlessly, and you never know who's to say where they're going to end up. If I'm sure they'll end up somewhere, but when?
We're in that fourth or fifth wave of free agency. There's a couple names you mentioned, a few of them, but the two names that are kind of intriguing to me that still could sign before the draft. So Cam Jordan, the veteran defensive lineman, who's had an unbelievable career for New Orleans. He's not going back to New Orleans, it appears. And so I think if you're a contender, if you're now Buffalo went out and already signed Bradley Chubb, so they're probably out. But I would have said Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore. They got Trey Hendrickson. Maybe they don't feel like they have to do it, but that's a name that's still out there. Calais Campbell. Calais is 40 or going to be 40 at the start of the season. He's still playing a high level.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sold on signing him, but Cam Jordan, to me, could be a big-time impact player for one of these contenders. And then Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings, I would have him higher up than Stephon Diggs. I really would. Brandon Ayuk's not technically a free agent. That's the tricky thing, as you pointed out, with June 1 for San Francisco. But two soon-to-be former San Francisco wide receivers are kind of the top of the list of free agency for me that I'd be intrigued by. Could a team wait until after the draft to see, hey, did they get their particular weapon they thought they were going to be able to draft in the first or second round, and that can change it? Maybe so. Are there draft night trades that impact this? You brought up A.J. Brown's name in the other conversation we were just having. Is he somebody that gets traded to the Patriots on draft night? Well, then does that open the door? Is that the domino that has to fall before Juwan Jennings or Stephon Diggs signs? Diggs might be more complicated because of the legal situation. Tyreek Hill's could be more complicated because of some of his personal conduct stuff on top of the knee injury, where if you believe some of the reports out there, Tyreek Hill maybe couldn't even pass a physical right now. So he could be more of an in-season type of acquisition, closer to the start of training camp type of acquisition if I'm a team looking for wide receiver help.
Yeah, and a couple other names, Joey Bosa, Bobby Wagner, obviously guys kind of getting up there in age a little bit, at least more so in the terms of Bobby Wagner, but still guys that you would think would fit on like a contender that could bring in some strong. I don't know if clubhouse presence is as prevalent in the NFL as it is in Major League Baseball, but they good clubhouse guys that could be good leaders in a team, bring some veteran leadership. But yeah, it's interesting, and then obviously with I don't know if you saw the ruling with the NCAA losing their appeal for Trinidad Chambliss. That means now he's going to be returning to Ole Miss, so he's not going to be in the draft, and so that kind of shakes up draft night. But I think you're right. I think a lot of these free agents and a lot of what is going down, is kind of hindering on draft night, which is a month away, and we have to really just kind of wait and see before then, because I don't really see any of these guys being signed before then, right?
Yeah, I mean, somebody maybe does. I don't want to say it's, we're not going to see a signing, but I'm kind of with you that we're now in this, as I said, like fourth, fifth wave, and it does slow down drastically. These are veterans in a lot of cases that can be really picky and as they should be. Cam Jordan can really be thoughtful with where he signs, see what opportunity for playtime. There's, of course, always the financial component to it as well, that some teams might be waiting to where they can navigate the cap better. But, yeah, if you're Cam Jordan, you probably want to play for a contender. You probably also want to find a spot where you can play, and if a team spends a top pick on a pass rusher, well, maybe that's not suddenly the best spot for you to go if you're worried about not getting a lot of playing time. So, yeah, I think that's just kind of where we're at in the NFL calendar at this point in time. Before we get into thinking of calendar, what the NFL is going to do to start the beginning of the season, a little change what we've had in the past. Don't forget, here on BetMGM Game Day, the Cavender twins are facing off in the Court of Legends game, and you can enter our Pick a Twin to Win free-to-play game for a chance to win a share of $2 million in bonus bets. And how do you get this offer? Well, 3 easy steps. Opt in to a Pick a Twin to Win free-to-play game. Select which Cavender twin, Haley or Hannah, you think will win the Court of Legends one-on-one basketball game hosted at the Bank at Bellagio out in Las Vegas, Nevada. And if the twin you select wins the game, you'll win a share of $2 million in bonus bets. And I can promise you we'll get into some more college hoops in the next hour again, as we've got, am I doing my math right here? About 3.5, 4 hours or so till tip-off of our first Elite Eight game tonight, Iowa and Illinois. Cannot wait for that one. And then, of course, some more hoops later on throughout the entire weekend. But the calendar for the NFL, it's looking a little different this year, and that is because the start of the season is going to be on a Wednesday. There was some speculation about this being the case. It's now official. We know we're going to see Seattle open up on Wednesday night. I want to talk more about that on the other side. We'll also get to some of the sounds of the week right here on BetMGM Game Day.
Smart takes, real stakes. The weekend starts now with BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you here on BetMGM Game Day, sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting your business vehicles 24/7. See if you can save at progressivecommercial.com. We'll get to the sounds of the week in just a couple of minutes, but I do want to talk a little bit more about the NFL. Right before we went to break, I had mentioned the calendar changing, Austin, and that is a Wednesday night game, and we have a Thursday game, but the Thursday game is going to be in Australia with the Rams and 49ers. The Wednesday night game will be the Seattle Seahawks, the defending champs, opening up with a opponent to be determined on a network or streaming platform, also to be determined, if my understanding is correct on that. And I think what I've tried to understand with this move is, one, the calendar this year is a little weird. They cannot have the Friday night game, and that is a big reason why they're doing this. Then you have the Australia game, and we know the league is pushing for international broadcast and international games more than ever. If I'm a Seahawks fan or a Rams or Niners fan, I get why you might not like it. If I'm a fan of any other team, if I'm an NFL fan, tell me why I should be upset about this. Like, for me, and I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because I will watch every Thursday night game, even if it's the Browns and Tennessee Titans. Sorry to your Titans for that example.
Easy.
Maybe this year they'll be more compelling. But otherwise, why am I upset about this? I love this. Give me the football on Wednesday nights. One day closer to the start of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm actually glad you're asking this question, because I have the reason why you should be upset about this, or at least why a majority of America should be upset about this, because the NFL scheduling department is trying to raise the divorce rate in America. All right. It was bad enough when they added every Thursday, but now, like, on a Wednesday night, we're getting Wednesday night football to kick off this. Like, how do I explain that to my wife? Like, how do I explain to my wife that I now have to watch Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday for college football, and then Sunday night, and Monday? Like, that is, if you play the stock market, I would buy all of the stock in divorce attorneys and marriage therapists, because it is going to skyrocket this year. It is going to make you rich. The NFL does not care about your relationships. The NFL does not care if you end up calling it quits on your spouse of 15 years. They don't care. All they care about is getting to their eventual goal of playing every single night of the week. It's kind of like when Who Wants to Be a Millionaire first started. It was a smash success. And ABC said, well, hey, why don't we put it on more nights out of the week? And so then they put it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They put it on all 5 nights out of the week on network television. And it was a smashing success at first. But after a while, kind of moved to the CW, and somewhere along the line, Meredith Vieira started hosting it, and nobody really cared about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire anymore. That's why I'm just worried about the NFL getting a little too greedy, and really, selfishly, I'm worried for my marriage.
Well, I hope you can navigate through this for your marriage's sake. I wish you all the best. I'm sure you will. I will say, though, I push back on the part where it's too much for starting on a Wednesday. I think where the question is it too much is more the expansion, which is eventually getting to an 18-game schedule. When's that number too many? When does that hurt the product so much that people stop watching? Is it 18? Is it one day 19? Is it 20? I don't know the answer. I think we're pushing the limit right now. I don't think having one game start a day earlier is screwing up anything with the league. I really don't. Now, if you're a player, I get why you may not like it. In Australia, they're going to play that 49ers-Rams game at Australian time at 10:35 in the morning. But for all of us back in the States, that's an 8:30 Eastern time kickoff. It's no different than what you're used to. So, again, fans of those teams or the players, sure, be upset all you want. Fan of none of those teams, just NFL fan wanting to watch, I don't think it really screws with the schedule all that much whatsoever. Not to mention, even as a player, I'm sorry, for one day, for one game, you got to start your job an hour and a half earlier. Oh, my gosh, I'm going to feel terrible for you. It'll be okay.
The one area where I do think the NFL does need to be intervened with, like we do need to sit down the NFL and just say, listen, NFL, this comes from a place of love, but when it comes to these international matchups, quit sending pivotal divisional matchups out there.
I'm with you there.
Keep those at home. Those are massive games, huge for playoff implications. Why are we sending them halfway across the world? The rest of the world does not care what games they get. They will go to the games. They will go regardless. We've seen that every year in London. They go to Jaguars games and they fill out stadiums for Jaguars games, okay?
It's only going to get worse, though, Austin.
It is. It's going to look. We're going to get more games overseas internationally, but for right now, can we stop sending really good divisional matchups out there? All right, like look, if you want to send out, Panthers Saints, sure, do it, okay. But like Rams 49ers in Australia, why is that game not being played at SoFi or at Levi's? Like. That should be a game that is held here domestically. And that's where I think the NFL really needs to look at what they're doing.
So we'll see as the offseason continues to, more and more momentum for them to rip up the CBA a couple of years early, which is what the league wants to do, which would lead to more international games and I think more divisional games, which I'm 100% with you. That's the worst part about where we're headed with international expansion schedule-wise in the NFL. All right, it is that time of the show where we get to some of the sounds of the week, and we start with what occurred on Friday night. I guess Thursday night that would be. Iowa and Nebraska. Fred Hoiberg taking the blame for a big mistake.
For Rink, about 58 seconds left. They had that deep ball to Alvaro for the bucket. I think there were 4 players on the court. Can you say what happened?
I'll address that one, Myron. Put that one on me. It was a miscommunication, and I'm the head coach. Put that one on me.
The 4 men on the court on that final inbound. There's some confusion online about if that's the rules. You're supposed to have 5 guys on the court. Were the officials supposed to hold the ball before the ball was put in play?
That's a good question, Rob, and I've never been in a situation like that. I know they always count to make sure there's not 6. I don't know the rule on that with 4. But, yeah, again, it was a miscommunication, and, unfortunately it happened. But, as far as the rule, I've never been a part of anything like that. So
that was Fred Hoiberg after a tough loss in the tournament to Iowa. It was a great year for Nebraska, but that was certainly a frustrating way to end it. They kind of blew it down the stretch, and that was one massive mistake. Only 4 players on the court. Now, he owned it, so I don't want to act like he didn't own it, and he wasn't trying to blame the refs. But even if you told me the refs are supposed to do it, I don't care. Like, you got to know how many guys are on the court. So even if you're telling me the refs should have held it up, which I don't believe they should have anyway, that just can't happen. That just cannot happen at the D1 level in a game of that magnitude.
Yeah, it's a tough way for Nebraska to kind of go out, really. It's a sour taste left in your mouth. But I'll say this. I have never empathized with a college basketball head coach more than I did here, because as a parent of 2 young girls, I am so used to not being able to count to 5 and not fully getting to my counting to 5. Like, hey, put that toy down and come here right now. I'm counting to 5, young lady. If you don't come here before then, you're going to be in big trouble. And then you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you get to 4, you realize they haven't even moved yet. There's not a chance they're making it to you to 5. So then you stop counting. And then like you never get to 5 as a parent. So can I blame Hoiberg here? No. I personally, I cannot, but I understand those that do. He is essentially the parent of Nebraska. So I've been there, Coach. I understand where you're coming from. Sometimes it is very difficult to count to 5. So I'm with you on this. It's just the problem is I don't think the rest of America really is.
Elsewhere in the NFL, you had Tua, who now is the potential starting quarterback in Atlanta, talking about how things ended in Miami.
With your teammates. Can you just give us some insight into, what it was like last season in Miami and how that might have shaped the season that you had?
Yeah. I don't want to get too much in depth with things that were going on, more so in terms of players to coaches than it was players to players. But it was unique in a sense. It was unique.
Unique in what way?
In a lot of ways.
What do you guys
that
make
laugh at the end?
Yeah, I mean, what do you make of that awkwardness there? And what he's saying again, this was not a players not getting along thing. He's basically alluded to, and that doesn't mean it was Mike McDaniel. Maybe it was somebody else. But and now Mike is out in L.A. with the Chargers as an OC. But Tua and the coaches, frustration. What do you think was going on there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very weird. I hate when people are just overtly vague like this, because it's like, hey, look at me, but stop looking at me, right? Like, it's like, I don't like Tua, either talk about it or don't. Like, don't bring it up. Like, don't hit at the fact that uniqueness. You know why? Because it does a disservice for you and the people that you previously played with, because it gets us to speculate, or like it gets us to thinking about probably things that are untrue. And so when you either come clean with it or don't bring it up at all, just play the upper hand and just be like, yeah, no, it was fine. It's going to be different here, I'm sure. But, it's not in a bad way, not in a good way. Like, it's just play it right down the middle of the field. And Tua didn't do that here.
The good news for Tua, I'll say this. I actually think he's going to have some success in Atlanta. We know he's on a cheap deal there, kind of similar to what happened with Russell Wilson, where the next team he signs was not going to pay much money. That's the case. Michael Penix is still there, but brand new regime. Stefanski is going to have his best quarterback to work with in years, and Kyle Pitts is still there. We know about Robinson in the backfield. Like, I don't know about you. I think Tua could have some early success there. Like, he had success at times, believe it or not, in Miami. But I think with Stefanski having a quarterback with a little more talent to work with than he's had the last couple, don't be surprised if Tua looks good in the first month or two of the season, assuming he ends up beating out Michael Penix for the job.
Yeah, Atlanta's really just collecting all of the left-handed quarterbacks in the NFL, aren't they? They're with Penix and now Tua battling for a job.
That is definitely true. Down in a division that is still very winnable, NFC South. I mean, that's a division that you can make a case for just about every team to find a way to win it after what we saw last year, where it was a tiebreaker ultimately that got the Carolina Panthers into the postseason. All right, coming up next, though, the coaching carousel is heating up in college hoops. We thought would happen last week. It ended up happening with Hubert Davis in North Carolina.
Game lines, headlines, and hard opinions. This is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
Alex Gold, Austin Huff, final hour for us on a Saturday, inching closer to Elite Eight action, starting in the South region. That'll be just after 6 o'clock tonight. We're going to get back into these games later on this hour. 9-seed Iowa trying to continue their historic run with Ben McCollum and company. And Bennett Sturts, they're taking on 3-seed Illinois. That one on TBS/True TV. And then the later game this evening, 2-seed Purdue taking on number 1 Arizona. Those are the 2 Elite Eight games today. And then, of course, after last night's action, we know our matchups come Sunday. Now, that'll be an afternoon setup. No evening games there. But Sunday afternoon, 2:15, 6-seed Tennessee taking on 1-seed Michigan. And then a 1-2 matchup, I mean, about as good as it gets, with Duke and UConn. A little after 5 o'clock tomorrow in the East region, taking place in the nation's capital. So we're going to get there a little bit later on in the show. You guys can watch us on YouTube and Twitch, BetMGM Tonight, youtube.com/BetMGM Tonight. Also interact with us if you want there through the chat. We'll keep an eye there, and on social media at Alex Gold, and then at Austin Huff. And you can listen to the show on the Westwood One Sports app, the Odyssey app, affiliates across the country, and over on SiriusXM channel 375. But before we get to those marquee games later on this hour, the coaching carousel got a little interesting. You know, we talked last Saturday about where the momentum was heading for Hubert Davis at UNC, and that the minute you have boosters and fundraisers saying, hey, you know, we might stop writing the check if you don't move on from this guy, I said last week that it was over for Hubert Davis at that point in time. And it didn't happen over the weekend, but it happened early in the week. Hubert Davis out, and it's the reality, I guess, of expectations at North Carolina, because this guy was 125-54. I mean, he almost had a 70% winning percentage, was a national title runner-up in year one. But then they didn't have a postseason appearance, followed up by a Sweet 16 appearance in back-to-back years where they were a first-round exit, including the 19-point blown lead to VCU just a couple weeks ago. So they move on from Hubert Davis. One of the premier programs has an opening, and there's some reporting out there that says a guy in your neck of the woods there, Austin, Billy Donovan, is perhaps one of the top targets at this point if he were to leave the NBA and go back to the college game. It's been a while since he was in at the college game, but maybe he's a top candidate. TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State would be really intriguing, although he's one of the guys that has been pretty adamant, unlike Tommy Lloyd, I think, but pretty adamant that he's going to stay at Iowa State. And in fact, Jeff Goodman was reporting that TJ pulled his name out of the running already, if you believe that report, at UNC. So I think TJ Otzelberger staying in Ames, Iowa. Where do you think North Carolina goes? Is the NBA path the best path, or are you with me where I think Tommy Lloyd, maybe it changes if they win a national title this year, but to me, that's the top target, and that's a guy that seems at this point not as committed to Arizona long-term based on his answers. At least maybe he's playing the agent game and wants to get a big raise at Arizona. I don't know, but I'm not sold that Tommy Lloyd is staying there yet.
Yeah, if these coaches are smart, they don't say anything right away. You know, they say, oh, well, you know, you kind of beat around the bush and make us speculate because that's how you drive your price tag up and get more money out of this, right? Like, even if you have no intentions of leaving, you still don't say that just because your agent gets on the phone and says, all right, let's work out a deal. You know, it's kind of really the Curt Cignetti situation. Obviously, he has the success with Indiana in 2 years, and you know, you have jobs like Penn State open, and they come calling, and he's like, yeah, no, and sure enough, Indiana inks him up. They up his pay almost tenfold, and you know, I do think that there is a chance that a coach coaching this weekend could end up in UNC. Like when Chapel Hill comes calling, like everyone, you have to listen, right? Like it's one of the elite jobs in college basketball. It's not every day. Well, I mean, lately it's, you know, kind of been more than not, but like it's right up there, you know, with the Kansases of the world, obviously with the Dukes of the world right down the street. When it comes to, like, you know, there's been a lot of rumors. I live and work in Chicago. I host a country radio show here, and there's been a lot of rumors about Billy Donovan. What's his future like? And even he said, "Look, I'm not talking about my future until the season is over," which for them will be sooner rather than later. But
right.
he's been in Chicago for a number of years now, and it's never been more than really just like kind of mediocre. It really hasn't done a whole lot here. I'm actually surprised he hasn't gone back to the college game sooner than that, because I obviously this is a guy who's won back-to-back national titles in college. Like he is a good head coach, and I think he is. I just think it's just not at the NBA level. So is that a name that the UNC would be willing to take a flyer on? I don't know, and I don't know if it would be the best flyer to take out on. To me, I think it's either. I think you got to lob phone calls to any of the coaches coaching this weekend, gauge them out, because there is probably one that would be like, hey, you can't turn down UNC. But I don't know. And one name that I've heard rumors about, and you could probably fill me in on this a little bit more, obviously living and working in Kansas City, but is there any chance that Bill Self leaves? Or if Bill Self is not the head coach in Kansas next year, it's probably due to retirement, right?
So he has not made a decision yet. There was some reporting earlier in the week suggesting that he was leaning towards retirement. For those that aren't familiar, this is not because he doesn't love coaching still. If he were to retire, this is all health related. Unfortunately, he's had some heart issues over the last couple of years, including a scare this year where an ambulance was called during a practice. They called it minor and precautionary, but still, it was another health issue for Bill Self. He's 63 years old. He has always said in the past he was not going to be one of these guys coaching until he's 75. That was never going to be the plan. But if it's not a health reason, then Bill Self will be coaching Kansas next year. Now, the transfer portal, as you know, man, things move quick in college sports. The transfer portal is April 7th. And so there is a little bit of a time frame here that it has to have a decision made. So it would be crazy. We could have Kansas and North Carolina opening up in the same offseason, which is unbelievable to think about. I don't think it's good for either program to have openings at the same time. You're kind of going through the same pool of candidates. But there was some reporting here locally this morning actually suggesting that Bill Self is still involved in recruitment right now with one of the top players in the country. And so I don't think he has definitively made up his mind. If you would have asked me on Monday, Austin, I would have told you that I think Bill Self is likely going to retire. I'm not so sure if it hasn't gotten closer to 50-50 again as we sit here on a Saturday afternoon. That he were to come back. There's talk that maybe he would rework his contract to make less money to help the NIL side. So there's speculation out there, rumors on what can happen. I'll tell you this, though, and it ties into North Carolina as well. You mentioned Billy Donovan. Here, the name that gets mentioned is Jacque Vaughn, right? A Kansas legend, former NBA coach. He's already on the KU staff. He just got back here a year ago, and people are mixed on whether or not you want to just promote from within after what happened at UNC. Is the NBA ties better now or worse? I'm torn on it because for both Billy Donovan and Jacque Vaughn, on one hand, I can see why you would want an NBA guy because of where the collegiate landscape is now, right? It's managing a roster more and the financial implications and getting guys to gel that haven't been with each other for more than 3 months, you know what I mean? And trying to go out there, they're not going to stick around for 4 years. So there's that intrigue that I think it can make sense. I also would want someone that's had success in college. Billy Donovan did, but is it too far removed? Jacque Vaughn has never coached in college other than being an assistant. So I'm torn on going that path. I prefer, like if you told me Kansas opened up and Bill Self retired, which would be, I think, a huge blow clearly to that program. Jacque Vaughn's on the list, but he's not 1 or 2 for me. Like to me, Tommy Lloyd has to tell you no. Dusty May has to tell you no. TJ Otzelberger has to tell you no.
Right. Yeah. Like I almost feel like if you're one of these bigger programs, and UNC, I would put up there, right up there with Kansas as, a tier 1 program in college basketball. You have to get the no's, right? Like it may, hurt the ego a little bit to get them, but like,
yeah.
These are important jobs that we're filling here, and you have to be told no by the, it's almost like playing like playing the sales game, right? Like you got to cold call. You got a cold call, and you're going to be told no probably more times than you're told yes. But that one yes makes it worth it. And if you get a yes from any of the coaches playing this weekend, any of the coaches that have been eliminated this weekend, I feel like you have to. You're not doing your job, and you're not doing your program justice if you're not. Look at UNC. UNC went within with Hubert Davis, and look where we are just a few years later. I just feel like you're gonna upset a lot of people within the program if you just hire within.
Do you think expectations, I mean, I guess the obvious answer probably is yes, go to college football for this too. Have expectations got out of whack for where we're at in college sports for even these premier blue blood programs? Because look what Hubert Davis just did. And I'm not saying that at one point in time that would not be acceptable. I mean, hey, early exits, but the fact you look at what he did there, that's bad enough to get him fired. Bill Self, people are frustrated here because they've only been to a Sweet 16 one time in 7 years, yet they also won a national title in the last 4 years. And so imagine if you're Jacques Vaughn or you're Tommy Lloyd or whoever that takes a job, if Kansas were to open up, or North Carolina that's open. I mean, those stretches aren't good enough for these guys. So think about the pressure. I mean, do you want to go to, in today's day and age where I can, with NIL, if I've got the boosters behind me, I can win kind of anywhere. Like, if I'm Dusty May at Michigan, I can win at Michigan. Now, it's not Kansas. It's not North Carolina and the tradition and everything. But I'm also saying, do I want to follow up Bill Self? Am I want to follow up Hubert Davis where that wasn't good enough? And I think that is an issue that you're going to run into at some of these programs. Of the standards should be high. Those are historic places. But, man, the fan base is restless. You won a title 4 years ago, and they're not happy. That's not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, aside from really John Shire, you never want to be the guy to follow the guy, right? Like that's rule number one. It is because the expectations are just way too much. They're insurmountable. And so it's like technically you don't want to take that Kansas job and follow Bill Self because it's probably less likely that you will be kept on as long. And I do think we are living in this day and age as sports fans and just in this society of sports that you can't really have off years anymore. If you are bad for a year or even just a stretch, even that could lead to the firing. I think the noise is just too loud, and you could blame social media, you could blame the internet, you can blame whatever you want, but it's almost like we are calling too quickly for guys' heads. Because I do think there are a lot of great head coaches that do get the axe just based off of a bad season or a bad stretch. You see it all the time. Sometimes rebuilds take a while. They take maybe 1-2 seasons, but you're not always afforded that luxury as a head coach. And so it's really kind of a tough situation to put in. But and then if you put on top of that, following the guy like you would with Bill Self in Kansas, I mean, you're essentially a dead man walking unless you can do the unimaginable like John Shire has at Duke and keep it rolling.
It's a tough spot. I mean, I don't think everybody would be cut out for that, and you certainly can't go into taking a job like that thinking you're going to do better than the guy before you, because that's pretty much impossible, at some place like that.
And even to John Shire's credit, what he's doing right now at Duke, his third straight Elite Eight appearance, right? Coach K only did that once in his entire tenure at Duke, right? So that he is the exception to the rule right there. It is very, more commonplace for you to see the reverse of that, of a guy maybe missing the tournament for 3 years. And then they're like, okay, well, John Shire's not it. We have to go somewhere else. And then they really do.
Well, it's the Mike Woodson situation Mike Woodson at Indiana. I mean, and how disastrous that was.
Right. No, it's a great point. And that's kind of like where UNC is at right now. It's like, okay, they're buckling down their bootstraps, and it's like, okay, I don't think that they're going to hire within again. I don't think they should. And I think they are going to really take this hiring seriously this time around, especially with the success that is going on just down Tobacco Road with Duke.
And one other note just on the coaching front, we did have a couple hirings this week. So NC State head coach Will Wade going back to LSU. You guys remember a few years back, there was the NCAA investigation. They moved on from him. He went to McNeese. Then he ended up at NC State. And after 1 year, he is leaving. And he's back at LSU. That was interesting news this week. And then St. Mary's head coach Randy Bennett, longtime coach there, leaves for Arizona State. That's a pretty unique one where reportedly, I guess he had already been living in Arizona. I don't want to call it a retirement job. I mean, he's in a Power 5 conference or Power 4 conference, but he was probably not leaving St. Mary's unless it was for Arizona State. I actually think that's a great hire for Arizona State and what he's going to do. You're going to probably hate playing him if you're a Big 12 team because that style of play is going to be brutal to play against and not the most exciting to watch. But I think Arizona State could have some success as they move on from Hurley and bring in Randy Bennett, who I think is 63 or 65. So, look, maybe he's only there for 5 years, but he gets your program on track. And maybe you have a bit more success than what you had the last couple years with Bobby Hurley, as we're talking some college hoops here on BetMGM Gameday. Don't forget, you know what March means for college hoops? You can lock in for every game and make your March moment when you bet with boosted odds. Activate your odds boost token for any March matchups bet, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. So here's how it works. Your March matchups odds boost token has already been dropped into your account. You don't even have to opt in. No opt-in necessary. You add a March matchups bet up to the specified maximum stake to your bet slip. Then you activate the token. And if you win your bet with the token activated, you'll score extra winnings. All right, coming up next here, let's transition a little bit to the NFL. And the draft is less than a month away. And there was some controversy this week between some media members and draft analysts in regards to the second quarterback in the draft. But is he actually the second best quarterback in the draft? We'll explain that next.
Simpson on the move. He's going to keep it and score. Creative, efficient. And Simpson says, hush now.
The bets, the breakdowns, the big games. BetMGM Game Day continues on Westwood One Sports.
Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. And that highlight you heard there, that was Ty Simpson in Alabama. Chris Fowler, ABC, ESPN on the call. Ty Simpson, the first month and a half of the season, he was a legitimate Heisman candidate. If you were to take a look at odds at BetMGM at the time, he actually was right there, fifth best odds or so, maybe even better at one point in time. And then the back half of the season just was not the same for Ty Simpson. Right now, he is projected to be the second quarterback taken in the NFL draft. Most people think a late first rounder, but there's some talk perhaps he could go sooner, depending on how things play out as well. And I want to start there, and then we'll get to our list and add maybe an item or two to the list that we do each and every week here on BetMGM Game Day, because this was an interesting debate this week. And it really was started by Dan Orlovsky pushing out there that he is hearing and talking to evaluators that Ty Simpson, he thinks, is better than Mendoza right now.
I think Ty Simpson is QB1. I think Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in this class. I think when you look at the body of work and what was asked of these two quarterbacks, you have to start with the question, who needed to do more to carry their football team to play well? Ty Simpson, and it's not close between those two quarterbacks. Who took more games over throughout the course of the season? Ty Simpson. It's not even close. And if we're asking, like, okay, we're trying to see what you are as a player in college and what you're going to be asked to do in the NFL and what translates. I start with, what do you do in moments of panic with the football? Because that's really what separates good to great. I would tell you that Ty Simpson is more consistent in that regard. There's not a ton of moments of panic out of Fernando Mendoza. And then there's moments when he immediately drops his eyes and becomes a runner. Ty Simpson more consistent in that. What guy was asked to do more NFL throws? When I say NFL throws, I'm talking 15, 20, 25-yard in routes, crossing routes, deep corner or sail routes. Yeah. Ty Simpson, and it's not even close in that regard. Downfield throws, the posts and the goes, I think they're close. Mendoza throws a lot of go routes, and he's good at it, but I think they're close. RPO, get it out, that's predominantly what Mendoza's offense was.
Right.
So that was Orlovsky on ESPN. If you're watching us on video, Austin's kind of shaking his head. What are you shaking your head about? What do you make of that?
I just, first of all, this entire saga has been nuts because then he doubled down on Pat McAfee's show just after.
Yeah, he did.
And basically said, what big games has Fernando Mendoza won this year? I'm sorry, man. Were you in a coma from early December to well into late January? Like, where were you, Dan Orlovsky? And look, this entire thing to me is just proof that the time between the end of the NFL season and the NFL draft is just entirely too long. We're running out takes, and we're running out of takes, and we're led to Dan Orlovsky saying that Ty Simpson is better than Fernando Mendoza. Like Ty Simpson is a guy that has played on a roster full of 5-star athletes. Fernando Mendoza literally just won the Heisman, won the Big Ten, won the national championship with a roster of nothing better than a 4-star. Like, what he did, and by blowing out Alabama in the Rose Bowl, like the entire road, like Fernando Mendoza looked incredible. So, like, to say he didn't really do anything on the field, and look, I'm not going to say that Dan Orlovsky does not do his homework. Dan Orlovsky is really good at what he does. And I know that a lot of people are saying, well, Dan Orlovsky is represented by the same agency that Ty Simpson is. That's not what this is, okay? Dan Orlovsky is a respectable analyst. He does his homework. He watches films. He's just way off the mark here. This feels like him wanting to be more of a take artist than an actual analyst. And look, I know better than anyone, okay? I own a lot of unpopular opinions. We all do, right? Like, I think the NBA playoffs are way more fun than March Madness, okay? It's the best basketball on the globe. Okay. I think the BCS was the absolute best way to pick a national championship in college football. I think that Jack could not fit on that door at the end of Titanic. Okay. It's all about buoyancy. People forget that. That's all this was by Dan, an unpopular opinion that many of us don't agree with it. Is he entitled to that opinion? For sure. But if many people don't agree with it, you have to like understand that it is going to come with pushback and backlash. And so I think at the end of the day, like, look, Dan Orlovsky is a very good analyst. He just seemed to run out of the back of the end zone with this take.
Well done. Well done. I see what you did there. Thank you for that. Look, I look at I look at the analysis on this throughout the week, and yeah, I thought the Pat McAfee interview was kind of hilarious to listen to, where Dan Orlovsky brought up the big game and the big moments. That was just a terrible explanation. If you want to sell me though,
that was arguably worse than the original take.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you want to sell me that, look, you look at some other intangibles. And you look at some of the throws, and you want to tell me that long-term Ty Simpson's going to be a better pro, as you said, by all means, that's your take. That's your opinion. No worries. But you cannot tell me one of the big reasons is because he was better in those big moments and did more than Fernando Mendoza. We all have eyes. We all watch come on. That you just cannot be convinced or convince me that that's what it was. Now, I think I've told you when it comes to Mendoza, I have plenty of questions. I think he's going to be a very nice quarterback, have a nice career. I don't think he's ever going to be one of the elite guys. I think he could be a franchise quarterback for the Raiders for a while, but he's going to still be, fast forward 4 years from now, he's still going to be the worst quarterback in his own division. Now, he's also in a division
it's a great point.
Mahomes and Phillip Rivers and Bo Nix, but like I think, unfortunately for Mendoza, and the Raiders, he's still going to be the worst guy in their own division. So he's not even a top 5 guy or a top 3 guy, in his own division. So this is not even me saying I think Mendoza is just light years better than Ty Simpson. I think if Ty Simpson goes to a good spot, he can end up having a decent career. But right this second, as we look at some of the reasons for it, you cannot cite me some of the reasons Orlovsky did. And so he's been crushed for it this week, and he doubled down. And I think you're probably correct that, and we're all guilty of this leading up to the draft. You know, everybody does different mock drafts. We have some fun on our local show with it. We play a mock draft sounder every time a new mock draft comes out, and it's become a whole bit, and we joke about it because there's too many. There's too many. And so we try to have fun with it. But I do think the longer window we have to discuss potential top picks, and this year is one where the quarterbacks, let's just be honest, it's boring for quarterbacks. We have a terrible quarterback class. There's 2 guys maybe that are going to go in the first round. That's it. It's not like we're debating between Drake May and Jaden Daniels, in one particular, and Caleb Williams or whoever, right? Like in a particular year. That's not what we have. It's kind of boring. We got the clear number 1 pick. We've known Mendoza was going to go number 1 overall for 3 months at least.
Yeah. And so like we agree that the Pat McAfee double down was worse than the actual take itself. But then I think even bordering the Pat McAfee double down is now this like playing the victim on the internet after the fact. Like, it's like, first of all, Dan, you were the one who gave this take, so you have to deal with the repercussions of it. And he's been posting things this week like, quote, people often forget that kindness is free. He just posted out like a cryptic photo of just like a sign hanging in a storefront window. And then he tweeted out a quote from Coach K, quote, "We should celebrate being real and honest and not fake." And then adding his own piece to that, just saying, "Couldn't agree more." It's like, all right, Dan, listen, bud, like, you had a take that nobody agrees with. You have to understand that people are going to push back. You can't like give the take and then be like, well, I'm the victim here. No, you're not. You're the one. You're the aggressor that came out and said Ty Simpson is better than Fernando Mendoza when we all watched college football last year, and no one really agrees with that. Now, look, do I think Ty Simpson is a very good quarterback? Yes. Do I think that it's probably Ty Simpson is closer to being the best quarterback in the draft than he is the number 3 quarterback in the draft? Certainly. But I do not think that he is better, at least shown in games. Ty Simpson had a significant drop-off last year. He got sick and, missed He struggled down the back half of the stretch. He was terrible in the Rose Bowl when they went head to head. You know who wasn't? Fernando Mendoza. And for you to say that Fernando Mendoza is not better than Ty Simpson and it's not even close, that's a bad take, and it's not even close.
Coming up in about 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to get back into college hoops. We got 2 Elite Eight games tonight, 2 tomorrow. But real quick, I do want to get to the list. If you're new to the show, each and every week, Austin and I add at least one item to the list. It doesn't have to be sports. It's something that maybe has been bothering us this week. So let's start with the new addition I saw already. Yours has to do with opening day. I'm actually going to piggyback off of yours, so it'll be like a 1A, 1B. But what are you adding to the list?
Okay. Yeah, there was a lot that I could add to the list this week. One from the MLB app itself. I don't know if you've opened it up yet this season, but they did a complete overhaul of it, and I think it is terrible. I've already had major bugs and issues with it, and let's be honest, I'm a baseball fan, so obviously I don't like change to begin with. And then also I could add the fact that I don't know if you heard about this, but a massive 12-ton shipment of Nestle Crunches Kit Kat bars was stolen in a heist that risks causing a shortage in stores right before Easter. Okay, we are in a top candy season of the year right now, and if we don't have Kit Kats, which I
take
think
all
is
the Kit Kats, by all means,
Rushmore.
take all of them. I can't stand them. They can have all the Kit Kats. Take them all. You can have them. I don't like Kit Kats. Get them out of here.
You know what, Alex?
They're not.
I might have to add you to the list. Give me a break.
I just housed a couple Reese's peanut butter cups in the break. That's the top tier candy for you. Give me some peanut butter cups.
Well, sure.
Screw the Kit Kats.
It's on the Mount Rushmore with Kit Kats. Kit Kats, Snickers, Reese's, and I'd be open to being bribed for that last spot. But the thing that I am adding to the list this week is sports' biggest wet blanket, and that is the awkward off day after opening day. And this year, I believe around half the league dealt with this growing epidemic. To me, this is a bigger buzzkill than a prom chaperone, anyone who comments, well, actually, on the internet, and a fly swatter, okay? It's like waiting all year for Christmas, but after opening your first gift, your mom tells your dad to go grab the camcorder. But then he has to charge it for like 24 hours before you can open up your second gift. It's like a girl answering your "you up" text and then immediately falling asleep. Like we wait all winter through the cold. We survive endless spring training box scores that mean absolutely nothing. Watching dudes in offensive lineman numbers hitting doubles and stealing bases. We endure the hour-and-a-half-long ceremonies introducing everyone in the franchise down to the physical therapists and the stadium ushers. Then we finally actually get baseball. And now you expect me to take a day off and do what? Go back to my regular life? Be productive? Talk to my family? Like, this would be like the NFL giving teams a bye week in week 2. Like, opening day is supposed to be a gateway drug, not a teaser trailer. I don't care if baseball is coming soon. I'm tweaking for more baseball. Give it to me now. And I'm not one of those people who hates baseball and clamors for the season to be shorter. Like, I actually love baseball, but I'm also big enough to admit that the season could be at least 1 day shorter. So leave the load management to the NBA and eliminate that awkward off day after opening day.
I think this is spot on. Now, we all know why they do it. It's a rain day, and they're worried about having the TV issues and everything like that. I get why they do it in that regard, but it does suck. You're spot on. It's such a buzzkill when you're excited for it. This is my 1B addition to it. I'll go with some experience this year, and maybe others have experienced it recently. The Royals did not have their opening day till Friday night. That's not opening day. We got to wait till Friday night for that. That was terrible.
Yeah.
It killed the entire vibe. I didn't have a real opening day. I have to wait until Monday at home when it's a true opening day. So I'm with you. The awkward off day. Let's also get rid of opening night baseball on a Friday night. That's not opening day. No. Everybody should be playing during the day unless you want to have the marquee random Wednesday night opener that they did. And go back to where the World Series champion, by the way, got to open up the season. Do it like the NFL. If the Dodgers should have opened up the season on that Wednesday night, not the Yankees and the Giants, okay? Why do we open up with the Yankees and the Giants on opening night other than the obvious, which I get it, they wanted the New York and Bay Area market.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of clamor too this week of the opening night. That was new this year. I actually liked that. I loved opening night, and I did actually. And a lot of people are ripping on baseball, and rightfully so, because it is a fault of baseball, but ripping on baseball that the game is now spread out amongst, probably a half dozen different streaming services this year. So you have to have so many different subscriptions just to watch your teams play. But let's not clamor Major League Baseball for this and not also in the same vein rip on the NFL, because really the MLB is just following the NFL's lead on this, because the NFL does the exact same thing with the number of streaming platforms that you have to own just to watch a full season, and they do the opening night thing. Like, I think it's the opening night thing is good for baseball. I like it. It's a standalone game, and it gets everyone hyped for, their team to play the very next day or, later that weekend. But we can't rip them for the streaming thing while not also ripping the NFL for literally doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think the opening night game I'm fine with for the standalone, what they did. I just don't think, unless you're going to go with the World Series champ the year before, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The fact that Braves fans, in this case Royals fans, had to wait till Friday night to have their first game of the year.
Yeah, it's
like, it wasn't on Thursday. It wasn't Thursday night. At least it'd be on opening day with everybody else. You had to wait an extra day on top of it. That was what was annoying about it. So we're both kind of on the same page here for the list right here on BetMGM Game Day. Up next, though, final thoughts on who's winning some of these Elite Eight matchups today and tomorrow, and are we changing our Final Four predictions based on what we saw? That's coming up right here on Westwood One Sports.
your edge for the weekend slate. BetMGM Game Day continues on Westwood One Sports.
All right, we're back here on BetMGM Game Day. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. We're going to get to the 2 Elite Eight games tonight, 2 tomorrow in a second. Do want to pass along, though, as we were having some fun talking baseball earlier today with one of our guests. Something to keep an eye on. We got a no-no watch on in St. Louis. Cardinals and Rays, top of the 7th inning. The Cardinals are up 2-0, and it is Michael McGreevy. And as I say that, I just saw they pulled him out of the game. So, so much for that. He did have a no-no going, but after 6, they just pulled him. It's early in the year. He was at 96 pitches. They're not going to push him. So, well, it could be a combined no-hitter. How about that? How about a combined no-hitter maybe for the Cardinals, as they have pulled McGreevy, and now Riley O'Brien is in to pitch the top of the 7th, and the Rays without a hit so far in the game. So, all right, well, that's a bit of a buzzkill. That changed right as we were coming back from break. I was all excited to talk about that.
That's been one of my biggest gripes about baseball. It's like we live in a day and age where, recovery and the science behind sports is at all-time highs, right? Like guys are stronger, built bigger, built faster than they've ever been built before. And yet we worry so much on pitch counts and, not pitching. Like, and then you go back to like days of literally like Cy Young in the early 1900s is pitching every single day. And he's, obviously, like his arm probably fell off at the age of 42. But it's just crazy that, like, the deeper we get, and like now it's like we're almost overly protective parents. It's kind of like back in the 70s. You could run outside and say, "Hey, mom, I'll be home when the street lights come on for dinner," and your mom didn't care about you. But now it's like parents are, even more worried about their kids. That's the way we are with our athletes in sports.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong for the most part. The only part I'll push back on is it's game 1. It's his first start. Do you need to push it this early in the season if you're the Cardinals? And as you know, I mean, you've got kids and you're around youth sports. The problem with the arms now compared to even 25 years ago or 20 years ago is you've got a lot of these kids, I say kids, but eventually if they're lucky enough to get to the majors, but that are throwing year-round, and they're having elbow issues in high school, and in order to get noticed in college, you better be throwing 95 in high school. You know what I mean? Like in college, and so you have way more wear and tear on these arms than we've ever seen before. But yeah, that's a bummer. It's game 1. I would wonder if that was he's at 96 pitches heading into the 7th. If it was July, would they have let him go? He's more stretched out, so it's probably the smart move, but it is a bummer. We'll see if the Cardinals can get the combined no-no. Don't forget. Here on BetMGM Game Day, sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Save on commercial auto insurance from Progressive. Get a fast quote at progressivecommercial.com. All right, let's get to these marquee games we got later on tonight. A little after 6 o'clock on the East Coast in the South region down in Houston. Number 9, Iowa, taking on 3-seed Illinois. The Fighting Illini are a 6.5-point favorite. The total, 138.5. We know the story with Iowa. Already beat Florida. Came from behind to beat Nebraska. Ben McCollum in year 1. Bennett Sturts, the future NBA star, maybe. We'll see. It's a sensational story. Illinois did something that I didn't think they were going to be able to do to Houston. I thought I had Houston winning that game. Houston's offense completely disappeared, but give Illinois a ton of credit for that. I think this game, my favorite bet around it is going to be the under 138.5. I think this could be like an ugly, slow game, which favors Iowa more than it does Illinois. So I think Illinois wins, but my bets on this game are under 130.5, and then the 6.5 points that I'm getting with Iowa. I know Illinois is more likely to be able to come up with the big shots. They've got more offensive weapons than Iowa has, but I think this could just be, I don't call it a boring game, but if you're wanting offense, this is probably not the game for you.
Yeah, it not only did Illinois do what we did not expect them to do against Houston in Houston, but then the city of Champaign mayor came out and did what we did not expect her to do, enacting an emergency order restricting the sale of alcohol on U of I's campus. Now, U of I is one of the best drinking schools in America. If there was a BCS ranking or a college football playoff ranking of drinking schools, then U of I would be number one. But she says, while we cheer on the Illinois basketball team to our victory this weekend, I want to remind fans to follow the team's lead and to celebrate responsibly. First of all, follow the team's lead to celebrate responsibly. This is a team who celebrated advancing out of the round of 32 with squirt guns. I don't think you're going to get a college campus full of kids celebrating with squirt guns. I just don't get it because your town's name is literally Champaign. And listen, to all my Illinois fans out there, screw this mandate, all right? Grab a blue guy at Cam's and just worry about packing that place in and, of course, icing out. The mayor may have dominion over the Champaign metropolis, but there are no rules inside Cam's, okay? And if they win against Iowa, there are even less rules in Indianapolis. So go hard tonight. Look, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, he did a video of him icing out at Cam's. Okay, so and I'm pretty sure governor is a much higher ranking than mayor. So go hard tonight, Illinois, especially if you advance. You deserve it. This is the first time since 2005. I'm actually kind of rooting for it, and I'm rooting against that mayor.
Big Ten showdown in the Elite Eight tonight. That's the first game. And then Purdue and Arizona, that's the later game, 8:49 Eastern time tip-off. That's in the West region. Purdue, Arizona, the Wildcats are a 5.5-point favorite against the Boilermakers. You know where I'm at on Arizona. We've been talking about this team for weeks now. I have them winning it all. I certainly am picking them here. I just think they're clearly the more talented team. And look, in March, that does not always equate to victory, but I'll even lay the 5.5 points here. -5.5, Arizona. Give me them. I think Purdue struggles, as we've seen throughout the season, against wings, while they're going up against a guy that's going to be a top 5 pick in Koa Pete. I think it's a big problem for Purdue. Give me Arizona. I don't want to say to roll. I don't think they're winning by 15 points, but I think they'll cover the 5.5.
Yeah, unless Purdue can shoot lights out from three, I think, this one's going Arizona's way because, Arizona just beat a really, really good Arkansas team by 21 points and only attempted 8 threes in that game. They only made 5 of them. They are very efficient scoring twos every trip down the court. And Purdue, I feel like you're not going to be able to stop them, especially inside. But I think that you can. Your best bet is to try and match their 2-point efficiency with threes, and that's really, I think, the only way Purdue will be able to stick around, hang in this game. They have the second best defensive rebounding percentage in the Big Ten, but the Arizona dominates on the offensive boards. So it's really something's got to give here, and unless Purdue shoots lights out, which I don't think that they will, I think Arizona rolls.
Yeah, and when we move to Sunday, 2:15 Eastern time tip-off in the Midwest region, Michigan, 1 seed taking on the 6 seed Tennessee Volunteers. Michigan, a 7.5-point favorite. So I'll once again take the favorite to win and to get to Indianapolis, but I'll take Tennessee to cover the 7.5 in this particular spot. So Yaxel was terrific against Alabama, but as I said earlier in the show, I just thought that was a horrific matchup for the Crimson Tide. I don't think this is a really bad matchup for Tennessee. I just think Michigan is that much better. But I think Tennessee can hang around with what Rick Barnes has got rolling for them. We've talked about the tournament success. I don't think Rick Barnes gets Tennessee to that Final Four that they've been waiting for, but they do cover the 7.5 against Michigan.
Yeah, Rick Barnes is 11-3 in his last 14 March games, and it is their third straight Elite Eight thing that we talked about. Only John Shire and Coach K did once in his entire tenure at Duke. Like, it's really impressive what Rick Barnes has done, but I agree with you. I don't think that this is the year. I think that Rick Barnes' Tennessee team falls, but I do think we do have to start putting some respect on Rick Barnes' name because he has proven that he can coach in March, and he has got this Tennessee program rolling. Maybe not during the regular season. They had some falters. They lost a lot of double-digit leads during the regular season, and they did not have as great of a regular season as they probably should have. But, man, they look like a force in March, but they're just running up against a bigger force with Dusty Mays, Michigan.
Yeah, we talked a lot about UConn and Duke earlier in the show. That's, of course, the late game. Duke, a 5.5-point favorite against the UConn Huskies, 5:05 tip-off. Am I allowed to go against my Final Four pick here? Because I had UConn in the Final Four, but with what I saw Duke do the other night and getting Caleb Foster, I think Duke wins, man. I think the Blue Devils have got it figured out and are headed to Indianapolis.
We're running out of time. Otherwise, I would rip off my shirt and show that my chest is painted blue. I had picked Duke at the beginning. I'm still rolling with Duke. I think Duke wins it all still.
All right, man. It's going to be a great couple of days of hoops. Elite Eights tonight and tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great weekend. We're back at it next Saturday right here on BetMGM Game Day.